All right. You should be able to see it now. I'll give it about 3 seconds. Turn this down a bit. All right. We're good. I don't want... How do I make that stop showing? Application capture, display capture, primary monitor. We're going to actually close that, and we want capture specific window, full screen application. And then I'm going to check and see what it looks like. Twitch. Perfect. All right. You're back. Welcome back. So it looks like we're good on the stream finally. Hell yeah. Mmm. Lemon water. Okay. Here's my ideas. We'll go through some of these questions, and then we can kind of talk about your guys' characters. And if Jack ever comes back, he can either chat with us or not, and that's fine. He's a good guy. I love him. But what I'm gonna do is audio capture, audio input, application audio capture. That's gonna be Discord. All right. Would you guys say something?
Hello. Hello, Gunda.
Works for me. All right. I just got to segregate these into separate setups. This is why two monitors is super useful for this. And but that's fine.
Hell yeah.
That is a future me task. I will do that in the next couple days. Okay. So we're gonna start with Nikolai and Yeshua. Uh, So, for anybody joining us or looking at this in hindsight, because I have somehow managed to not utterly fail at this project, we're just figuring out how all this works, and we're going to talk about some of the characters because I've got a couple of people here that are, for lack of a better word, in very different ways, genuinely epic players when it comes to living in their character and doing what their character would do. And that is the highest praise I can give to someone or anyone who has, on repeated and numerous occasions, made me rethink and redo months of work. So for you two, this is very useful for me, just because I can kind of get a better grasp on how you guys think, what you guys want to do, and this is something that in hindsight would be super useful over time to just sit back and chat with everybody, just so that I can understand what the, your guys' internal world is regarding your characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So for you guys, question number 1: if your character was an adventurer, what livelihood would they lead?
Oh shit. Oh, ah. There we go. We talking Hugo or we talking Ash here?
It could be either one. I mean, both of you have multiple characters in my games, so it's not an issue or a problem to be like, well, this guy would do one and this guy would do another, and
Alright, but what do you consider adventurer? That's the thing. Like, are we talking about or assassins or bounty hunters? Are they adventurers?
If your character was not part of the campaigns that they're part of, what sort of livelihood would they have?
None.
None.
That's why you come back to
Fully
it.
homeless.
Very
Fully homeless.
nice. Let's see. For Hugo, I feel like the answer is pretty simple. I feel like he's just kind of would keep doing what he's fucking been doing. Just literally just going from place to place, just kind of scrapping ends meet, just kind of trying to have fun at bars, be a musician. Yeah, what he said. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. He's not really a person who likes to stick around at one place, not really a person who likes to, not necessarily doesn't like to make friends, but doesn't really have a lot of friends, so he doesn't really mind going from place to place, just kind of adventuring around.
Makes sense to me.
My answer. I feel like I'm mostly going to base it off Hugo, because Ash is a character I haven't played in like over a month.
Hey, you know what? When I'm gonna be real with you, I constantly get comments and questions from people from their characters from years ago, where they're like, "Hey, weird question, XYZ," or what would have been really interesting, or how I took this. So yeah, it's fine to just kind of live in the moment and stay with this, but a couple of months is not a long time when it comes to the grand scheme of things of like D&D characters, right? Which I get, I'm normally on this side of it, but I get. Nikolai, how about you?
Right.
You can go with whoever you want.
So
You've had plenty.
Yeah. I've had plenty. So not part of this campaign. I think Abdiel probably would still be a little amnesiac asshole, trying to punch above his weight, and sooner or later it probably would have got him killed.
I mean, yeah, probably.
So,
I mean,
so right now, I think he'd be dead. I think Abdiel would be dead right now.
That's real. I mean, the only reason why you didn't is because you picked a fight with somebody so far above your pay grade that nobody even took you seriously.
They're like, this is adorable. Whose prank is this?
Who's Fred? Who do you know in this room right now? Right? Like, just that.
Kincaid, is this you? Is this your guy, Kincaid? Like,
yeah, is this your boy? Come get your boy.
Get your man.
That makes sense. And that makes sense considering that, like, what's funny to me is that you're like the character that you're referencing, Abdiel, is a character that was utterly backstoryless on the part of the player.
Exactly.
And then became such an integral part of the world mechanically and in the sense of doing things for people and places having identities and groups of people having representation. I mean, you were my first Arab or Middle Eastern coded character with, Abdiel bin Razmir al-Arkanos, which was a lot of fun for me. Just naming conventions alone are something that I really, really find really fun and interesting. But yes, looking back, not having Nell there to fix your wild magic surges at a certain point, dead, just fully dead, right?
Just dead.
Just dead. Whose fault is it? No, it doesn't matter. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. He teleported somewhere he shouldn't have teleported, and that was
100%.
we never saw him again.
Yeah.
We never saw him again.
He was going to go to a mountain. He went into the mountain and nobody found his body. That's probably what happened. I don't know. I'm no magician. All right, question number 2. Who in the party...
Later.
1,000 years later, they just find his skeleton in a block of granite.
Skeleton. And they're like, how the fuck did this get here?
Exactly. And that's if that doesn't sum up the vibe of that character, I don't know what does. So we're listening to some White Bat audio, and we are reading 100 questions that were courtesy of somebody named Grey Jedi Luke. So whoever you are, I hope your rolls have been good, and I hope that time has been kind to you, because Lord knows that given the state of my skeleton, time is a very heavy mistress. And some of us are into that. Question number 2. Who in the party would your character trust the most with their life? This is a hard question for one of you, because you know what these people are like. But we'll go with you, Josh. Josh, who in the party would Hugo trust most with his life? So currently, I'm streaming and learning how to Twitch outside of caffeine overdose, because I'm desperately trying to be a paid DM, and I figured, you know what, I've got a couple of people in here, let's just have a conversation so I can learn how to use the tools and use the different technical aspects of Twitch, so that hopefully, and this is hoping against hope, at some point I can get enough people that want to play what I would consider good D&D, that I can make enough money to not have to walk down a very steep mountain to get cat food from a cat. So you are free to do whatever you want to do. You can stay, you can go, you can do whatever. If you want to participate in this, I would be more than happy to have you. I would really appreciate having you, because you, like these two, are an incredible character player. But no pressure. If you feel free to do whatever you want to do, one way or the other. Just don't play anything copyrighted or say anything that'll get me TOS'd, and you can do whatever you want. And your brain is going through some TOSing things, just don't do that.
Yeah, right, just scrolling through. Let me join on my phone instead of Xbox, because I'm having some connection difficulties on my console, so I'll be right back.
Alright, no idea what that's like. Shifty eye.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but to answer that though, it's 1,000,000% Wolfric. It's not even close. He so far he has been an overall very nice guy to me. Hasn't really done anything bad. In terms of in battle, who I wouldn't want to fight, Wolfric's definitely up there. But as a fellow companion, fellow friend, I feel like I can trust him the most out of anyone. And then followed by Sayer, and then Veruja.
Veruja.
Forget Jack's character's name. Veruja, would sell me for a box of matches, so I don't particularly trust her to that extent. So
in her defense, would that be a reasonable trade from her perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So while you take exception to being sold for a box of matches, you also get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
And you know what? And that makes sense. We're not going to go into like the daddy issues aspect of things. But when you have a big bad zaddy boy in the party, it's really hard not to trust them, especially whenever they are portrayed as the most wholesome barbarian that has ever baked a cake just to bludgeon a motherfucker to death with it, right? So this is I would argue this is probably a slightly more difficult question for you, Nick. Who in the party would Abdiel? We're going to go with Abdiel first. We'll stick with Abdiel for now. Who in the party would Abdiel trust the most with his life? Because you've done it a few times with a few people.
A few times, yeah. Um, it's a tie between Satara and Nell, but probably like Satara wins that by a little bit for sure.
Because she's not going to use you for a science experiment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I know what I'm getting into with Satara. I don't know what's gonna happen with Nell, but
I mean, getting into a
Nell,
problem with Nell, you know you're going to be okay, but are you still going to be you when you're done, right?
right?
Okay,
I mean, I
continue.
know I'm gonna
Sorry.
have fun regardless if it's with Nell. Fucking maybe a little bit ultra tarry, but it's still fun at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Welcome back. Welcome back. You are
Thank you.
welcome back. You're live with talking D&D with a bunch of nerds, starring a bunch of nerds.
Perfect. So, just for the record, it was my lag was so bad on console that after I left, I still heard you guys talking, and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?"
That is
Hell yeah.
wild. That is utterly wild.
Yeah, like I was
Uh,
so out of the call, and then I still heard Joe talking, and I was like, "This is strange."
That's wow. The madness has taken me already. Neat.
Yeah, right.
So let me ask you, Jack, as as a player in one of my games, who has played with me for a comparatively short amount of time, and who I would argue is 9.8 out of 10 on locking into a character and then moving straight forward.
Word.
Who in your party, either as Molag or as Veruja, would you trust most with your character's life?
Um,
Hugo stares at you like side.
yeah. Verusia flips off Hugo like immediately.
Immediately, right?
Um, does it have to be a character or an NPC?
A character in the party. It's a character in the party. Because as an NPC, I already know Veruja would trust Molag more than anybody else. So that's a cop out. You don't get to have that. You got to pick. You can either go when you were Molag and you had Ash and Thorin, or as Veruja and then you have Sayre, Hugo, and everybody's favorite little scrumptious muffin, Wulfric.
Wolfric. I would say as Veruja, um, Wolfric would be the one that she trusts the most with her life, simply because she can relate a lot, and she sees that he's like a calm, level-headed person who wants to take the second to think about stuff rather than just jumping straight into stuff. And she's kind of the same way, and she feels that she could relate to him while
Mm-hmm.
also semi trust him already, and it's only been a short amount of time.
So 2 for Zaddy. Got it. He kind of he really does have like dadcore vibes, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
All right. So we're gonna move on to something a little bit more esoteric.
Yes,
What are your
hold me,
characters?
Monster.
Daddy, sir. What's up? What'd you say?
Bro, why are you bringing up a horse? You good enough?
Yeah, right. My horse.
Uh-huh. Just a massive stallion breathing down your neck.
Yeah. Breathing actual like smoke out.
Is that steam or smoke? Which would scare you less? I don't want to answer that question. What are your character's core moral beliefs? And we're going to start with you. We're going to start with you, Josh. You tell me, what are Hugo's core moral beliefs? And none or 404 error morals not found is not a valid answer.
Honesty, God no. That's a interesting question. Let's see. Think about this. Give me a sec.
While he's thinking, for anybody listening at home, for whatever reason, if your day has been that slow, you're listening to me with literally no followers or anything else. Are you okay? Do you need to talk about something? Let me know. We're here for that. Uh, Josh is a very clever man, but he is too clever by half and outsmarts himself. So sometimes questions like this puts him in a position where he's got a gut reaction and he doubles down by not doing that, which is a good problem to have, if I'm being honest.
Um, God, that's a hard fucking question. I'm sorry.
It shouldn't be.
I don't know. I don't really. I know it shouldn't be. I'm just trying to think in character.
Is there a bridge too far for Hugo, the sexy bard?
Bridge too far. Um,
Hey, Hugo, you want 20 gold? You gotta go burn down that orphanage.
yeah. I think. All right, Hugo. He's a very deceptive personality. Like he definitely will lie, and he definitely will like definitely will say things that he knows is like generally just like not the greatest thing to say in the world, but
Mm-hmm.
basically the example that you gave even like he definitely has some fucking moral responsibility to being like, hey, that shit is not okay, and is willing to hmm, is willing to help. Dude,
Hey,
this is a
that shit's
hard.
not okay. Throws a bag
Yeah,
of gold. All right, it's looking a little better.
no, it's slightly better, but
A little.
Yeah.
maybe a bridge too far. No, he definitely um well, fuck. Why is this such a hard question for me, dude? I don't know. Skip me. Come back.
Because Hugo is not a character that has ever examined himself. And because
Yeah.
of that, you're having a lot of difficulties with examining him. At least that's my opinion. That's my 2 cents on it, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
And you
I
know
don't
what?
know.
That's a good problem to have because it means you
You
have a
know.
character that exists so strongly that even when you don't get him, you're still interested in the dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what's making me struggle so much is my character is so fucking different from my previous character, like
Mm-hmm.
morally in general.
And
Uh.
good stretch away from you yourself too.
Yeah.
You're biting off. You guys, like you especially, are making really big swings by taking one little sliver of yourself, and that's the safe part, and then everything else is as far away as it can be. Right? Very stained glass window. If you understand the reference. If not, I'll explain it later. Um, okay, we're gonna move on. Nick. What are any of your characters? But so far you've been with Abdiel, so you can continue or you can swap. What are your characters' core moral beliefs?
I think I'm gonna swap to Haran. Like for those that don't know,
Okay.
Haran is based off of Mandalorian. Um, so I've been playing him as a Mandalorian, and I've been playing him with uh s- the Super Commando Codex from Star Wars, and their whole belief system is basically they have four tenets of strength, honor, loyalty, and death. Um, so basically, the quick rundown is if you're strong, you have the right to take like what you want, whether it be like power or mostly power, because with Mandalorians, the strongest have the right to rule with the Mandalore aspect of it. Um, and honor, Mandalorians are very honor coded race warriors, so they're big on honor and they're big on anyone that anyone that betrays that trust, betrays that honor, deserves to die. Um, it's one thing to be dishonorable on a battlefield. It's another thing for someone that you think of as a friend and an ally to suddenly stab you in the back.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense.
yeah. Um, what I say? Loyalty next. Loyalty is life, for without one's clan, one has no purpose. which is basically like, hey, that's your family, that's your brother, and brother in arms. You've fought with them, you've bled with them, so that's what makes it. That's what makes it a moral is if you don't have your family, you die alone. Um, and then death is life. What your dice have lived. Basically, if you're fighting throughout your whole life, then you go down fighting. Don't go down as a coward. And they have a word in the Mandalorian language for that called Hutun, which is a coward. And basically, if another Mandalorian comes up to you and starts spewing that word at you, it's basically a fight to the death.
Jesus.
If basically, because that's the worst kind of thing you can call someone in the Mandalorian language to another Mandalorian, other than Darmanda. Um, I'd have to look it up. I'm not quite sure what the literal translation of Darmanda is, but it's basically telling them they're exiled from the Mandalorian way of life, and they have no um, basic uh, right to still wear their armor or be part of that way of life anymore. But I think those are his core beliefs: strength, honor, loyalty, and death.
Okay, that's a hard left from the previous characters you've played, which is
It really is.
it. The fact that he's so stoic, that's wild, right? In comparison to mostly Abdiel, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Uh,
But Abdiel was far from stoic. Abdiel was this little fucking crazy ass goofball that basically did what he wanted.
he wore his heart
And
on it.
but
He wore his heart on his sleeve and injected it with medical grade cocaine at every opportunity.
exactly.
Okay, so in the chat we have the engineer asking actually a really good question. All right, this is we're going to Jack. I'm going to need you to answer this question, and then we're going to bring in our first special guest in the engineer.
Um, answer the question.
Yes, the question is, what are your character's core moral beliefs? We're on 3 of 100.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. We'll be done by midnight.
Core moral belief. I'm gonna stick with Veruja, even though Veruja and Molag are pretty similar in their core moral beliefs, which is above all, protect your family. Your family is what matters in life, and your family is what's gonna be there for you. And by, in return, you should be there for them. Always, always lay your life down for your family, your loved ones, and always make sure that they're more safe than more safe than you are, essentially. Always put yourself in front of the danger to protect your loved ones. And then secondly, the innocent, whether it be just straight up innocent people, children, people who are victims in a way, protect the innocent, protect the victims, make them justified or you know, liberated.
I feel like you've thought about this a lot more than most of us have, if I'm being honest with you.
Eh, I mean, I gave it a good little bit of thought. That's what you got to do when you're getting into a character. Know your know your person, know who you're playing, know what they like, what they don't like, their belief system, because that's kind of what you got to play into. That's what you got to know in order to make your decisions as your person. It's like adopting a whole nother personality.
That's Well, if nobody knows, that's actually very insightful and very uh, a level of reasonable based on how things work. Um, and we are going to be joined by our first special guest, the engineer. Engineer, how are you doing today?
Oh my god.
You don't have to call me that.
Mm.
Oh my.
I'm just a
Okay,
DM.
sorry.
I'm just here to help. You're good. What's
He's
up? How you
gone.
doing?
I'm doing. You're answering me. Oh, sorry. I joined in, and the bot for some reason is like extremely loud on my end.
Oh, I do not know why the bot is defaulted at 37 on a scale of 1 to 10. I cannot fix it on my side, and that's just what it is.
It's okay.
So, my
It's okay,
apologies. I should have said something before you joined. My bad.
No, it's okay. It's okay, dude. Not your fault.
But you had a question, and this is actually a really good question because this, for me, as somebody who spent a lot of time doing philosophy work, and my character work is based mostly on like world threads of trajectories. You asked a very interesting question, so please ask the question to the assembled group, and then they can answer, and then I will answer from the perspective of one of my characters, if that's something that interests you.
No, absolutely. Do I just answer it? Do I just read it out loud? Do I post
You,
it somewhere so everyone can read?
whatever is, if you would like to read it out loud, go ahead. Actually, because everybody is kind of watching the stream and doing whatever they're doing,
read
go
it
ahead
out
and
loud.
read your question. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, read it aloud. So, how does your character react when faced with someone who just doesn't care if they're wrong or they're evil? They understand wholly, completely that what they're doing causes pain. They understand that what they're doing is wrong and even to no benefit to themselves. They don't care. They just can't do these things and they're not caring. They cannot be convinced. You cannot appeal to their emotions because they're just at peace with what they're doing. Like, yeah, I slaughtered a whole village. Yeah, people are in pain. They're crying. They're gonna be miserable, and I don't care. I just have the power, and I'm gonna do it at leisure. So how does your character deal with someone with that kind of personality per se?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a good question.
Josh, how does Hugo react to that?
Ooh, I love you pressuring me for a question every time. It's great.
Okay, you know what? We'll go backwards because I think this will be easier for everybody involved. Jack, we're going to start with you. We're going to start at the bottom and move back up. Jack,
Yeah.
how does Molag or Varuja react to somebody like that? Because I feel like they react the same way.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying about protecting the innocent is one of their core values. Is if they see someone being mistreated, someone who clearly doesn't deserve it, someone who can't defend themselves, then it's a very big problem for them. It's one of those unjustifiable sins in their eyes where they feel they need to right that wrong. They need to step in and be the hero for the little guy, the one that can't stand up for themselves. They need to help in any way that they can.
Okay, that's. I mean, that tracks given both characters. Even though one is a lot
Yeah.
more approachable than the other, and I'll let you decide which one's which. Uh,
Yeah, right.
Nick, you can go with Abdul, you can go with Haran, because I think they
I'll
have
go with
very
Haran.
different. They have very different outlooks, but very similar actions.
Yeah, they do. I'll go with Haran.
Okay.
So if Haran's being faced with someone who doesn't care if they're wrong and they're evil, it's probably because he's picked up a bounty for him, honestly. So he would probably go hunt them down and uh drag them back to whatever city for them to face justice. Um, and if the guy's not gonna go willingly, then like he's gonna be brought back in a body bag. It's pretty simple. Um, Haran has a very like he's very honor coded and very um more like morally sound. So I don't think he'd let someone that is evil or wrong just continue to be on their pathway of being
Mhm.
wrong or evil.
That's a that's an interesting response. It's very much I'm going to stop you because of all these good reasons, but also because I don't want you to go any further. It's interesting. All right, Josh, your turn.
All right, I'm not really thinking of this from the point of view of Hugo. I'm actually kind of picturing it from the head of Ash, who
Go for it.
generally is a extremely trustworthy person to a very like a very
fault.
like he really shouldn't be trusting the people he's trusting degree. And I think it would almost like shock him to his core that there could be such evil in the world, and it would really like I think he might play around, he might joke at it for a while, but him actually like realizing like that there's a person like this, I think would genuinely anger him, which is not some emotion that he would generally feel under any scenario, especially like unless like his brothers were getting hurt or getting
Yeah.
attacked. I think that's the only other form of anger that he has ever felt. But I think he would have so much distaste for something like that, which is just such a strange thing if you like really know who Ash is. And
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
don't know. It's like it would like I feel like it would almost awaken something inside of him.
I
Wow.
mean, well, that boy needs some awakenings in a couple of contexts, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Um,
I asked this question because, for context, my character is that person.
Ah, I see.
so
I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
Oh,
that's a good question, especially when you're playing a character that has that sort of situation, because you have two very different paths. All right, and then I will address this before I answer as like my most recent character. Um, Cat's doing cat things, and I swear to God, property damage abound.
Oh my god, my cat tries to put on the printer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Oh, there's a door closed. Who's in there? What do you have? Anyway, um, cats are neutral evil with favorites. Uh, so the core identity, you have two kind of trajectories. One is just being an unabashed monster, and then making everybody deal with that, which is in the right context with the right people at the right table, a viable strategy. The other is the Amos from the Expanse strategy. Oh no, I killed everybody because they were a threat. Were they all a threat? Well, more than half of them were a threat, so the rest are probably a threat, and they kept picking up guns, so I kept shooting them. Seems extreme, does it? When you are somebody who knows that it hurts people and knows that hurting people has a moral weight, you are making a decision to do something that is selfish and malicious. When you are a person that lacks empathy, somebody with structural psychopathy, or a character who, for one reason or another, has no emotional context for anything, you're in a position where, well, I like trees, so I plant trees, and I don't like bullies, so when somebody is, bullying somebody, I set them on fire. That's an extreme disconnect. That's an extreme disconnect, but it's also one that exists in a state of logic. The only thing that I would say in response to that is, as long as everyone at the table is having fun with it, keep doing what you're doing. But be cognizant and be communicative with the other people at the table. Not everybody wants to play with somebody or can play with somebody that is in that sort of position. and has that sort of personality. Not that there's anything wrong with it inherently, it's just a complicating factor. Does that make sense?
But no, everyone likes Brody because he doesn't show it, but he's like he's not evil or good. He's just doing whatever causes the most damage. Because I can get into context, but I'll let you answer if you must, because there's a lot of context.
Okay, then I'll be very quick. Uh, the last player, the last PC that I played, because I'm a DM 90% of the time, his name was Xenius. In a situation where something like that occurs, where the just the very question of how he would react when faced with someone who doesn't care that they're wrong or evil, he would explain to them how and why they're wrong, explain why their actions are perceived as evil, and offer them the choice of working with him to improve that or choosing to double down on it. And if the former, then rehabilitation arc. If the latter, then Zen puts them down pretty severely. As a player, I can tolerate, and my characters that I make, because this is the part of me that shines through, can tolerate a lot of things. But deliberately hurting people that don't need to be hurt is a bridge too far. And if your character, not usually the player, most people can clock this, but if your character has no frame of reference for why this is a complication and makes life harder for us, then you are now a detriment to our goals. And detriments are dealt with. But what you were saying, please continue with what you were saying in response for context.
For context, I'm not gonna get too into it because it's heavily homebrew. The DM loves Norse mythology, so he made a whole homebrew thing. My character, not gonna get into it, is a dragonborn. His past, he grew up in a set of dragonborn tribes, per se, that lived entirely underground. They were not. They were basically self-exiled because they feared the apocalypse so much. They just dug themselves underground beneath the dwarven mountains, like even deeper than dwarves, just to escape it. He gets by luck. He gets into the outer world. He's immediately cursed. Like first second out, he's cursed by a literal god of war. He's then rescued by another godly being. Again, I'm not gonna get into details. But what gets it that he never has agency. His past as a whole is just getting pushed around. And he feels like he never has agency over what happens in his own life. So when he makes a deal, because he's like, he starts as a barbarian, but he makes a warlock deal with the main villain, he just realizes that he now has the power to impose himself, and he just does things like he's not inconveniencing the party. In fact, he's helping them because I feel like he preemptively killed a person that was going to betray them. Because of sheer luck, he just happened to be pissed at the right person. He just does these things because he never got accorded power. So now that he has like inconceivable power, I think his Eldritch Blast has like a modifier depending on his curse that just obliterates people.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to feel important. He wants to be, on his own words, as I put it, he wants to be undeniable. He wants to be something you cannot look away. He wants his actions to be have so much weight to them that people cannot just push him around. So
Mm-hmm.
that's his whole goal. He just wants to be completely undeniable. He's not looking for like world domination or necessarily evil things. He's just looking to cause such an impact that people just cannot look away from him and just push him around anymore.
So the way that you're explaining this gives me the impression that you, as a player, understand the complexities and difficulties of a character like this, and are doing your best to just live the character, play the character straight, right? Um, I think for a lot of people, anybody listening, anybody watching, anybody coming back and looking at this because you have been up for 73 hours and are in the deepest, darkest recesses of Twitch, whatever, the explanation of the why behind things matters so much more than the what. And this is a very good character concept where it creates conflict and friction, but it is also understood by the player as inherently problematic, in my opinion. Would that, in your opinion, does that reflect the situation?
He's very problematic, and that gets because he has a lot of these things. He has like this thirst for being completely untappable. He doesn't want people to look away. That's a thing that like I warned people preemptively. I said, hey, my character is gonna be a little annoying. That's not me trying to attention hog. That's his character design because he just cannot tolerate anymore. He has like he's kind of young for like D&D standards. He's like 20 Dragonborn years per se. He lived
Mm-hmm.
his whole life as a miner. Literally, he was underground city. He lived as a miner. His job was to seal tunnels to the outside world, and his whole thing is that he just got pushed around and told what to do every single time of his life. Because of this, he also has a chronic fear of authority because his village punishes the shit out of any deviation. So he has both this balance of like, I want to do something horrible, but I'm afraid of the consequences. And that's what his curse come in. His curse is not really considered a blessing sometimes. His curse is because he has technically a godly lineage of like a bastard son of a god, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's his destiny, quote unquote, to end the world. That part wasn't me that wrote. Okay, I wrote the base character. My DM got him involved in the godly stuff. He was just going to be an asshole at first.
Yeah, that's very Greek coded, very Zeus just can't keep it in his pants coded. But piggybacking off that question, because I have to go deal with some cat things. Um, Nick, would you be so kind as to explain the overlap between that explanation and character with my previous character Xenius while I go deal with whatever the hell this is?
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
My guy! Did you heard the explanation of the character and the dynamics of a character that is inherently disruptive and a player that is letting everybody know just the overall communication of my character is like X and believes Y and does Z versus W versus the interpersonal communication issues that can occur in a play in a game. You were busy, weren't you?
Hello.
I can explain it all over again if you wish.
It's
Can
fine.
you, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. My internet crapped out a little bit.
Got it. That's
So
got it.
yeah. Sorry. What was your question, Joe?
We're going to skip that because honestly, it's fine.
This is
Uh,
the third attempt.
Engineer, we're going to keep you. You want to stay on for a round or two of questions? Does that sound fun?
Of course, I'm gonna say I have plenty of time. I can stay pretty much until the end of the stream.
Okay. So here's going to be a fun question, and I would like everybody to just go in order of you're in the Discord. Go in order of the actual Discord itself. The question is, what relationship does your character have with their parents and siblings? Because I have to go deal with a cat. But I can hear you, so I'm still here.
Okay.
Now on top, so I'm gonna start, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My character despises his parents, but he also cannot bring himself to do anything. In his eyes, they kinda own him because they gave him life, and that's a teaching in his quote-unquote religion. It's not really a religion, it's more like an overall doctrine that if you give life, if you create something, that something is yours, and it's your job to exert power over it. That's kind of the whole justification for why the gods get to just just toss people around, and everyone just says, "Oh, the gods made us." Each race is kind of made by, again, homebrew stuff, but anyways, each race has a kind of a maker god, and so that's the explanation this Dragonborn tribe has for just, yeah, the gods can just do whatever they want. They created us, so they get to do whatever they want, and they extend that to familiar relationships, which means the parents can do pretty much whatever they want. You know, a parent could literally just kill a kid, and no one would do anything other than say that that's sad, because in the eyes of the village, the kid is just property. You don't become your own person until you yourself start making things. So his relationship with his parents is one of utter disgust. If he ever finds them in the state he's in, now that he's got the deal, he's going to instantly Eldritch Blast both of them with immense joy. Because he doesn't see them as parents, he just sees them as people who like try to intervene with his quote unquote birthright. Because at this point he started like pretty hesitant about the end world thing. By now he just has come to terms with it, that it's his birthright to end the world. And he's let the party know, he's let everyone in the party know, look, I am gonna kill you guys eventually. We're gonna fight. I win, and if whoever wins, wins. No grudges. It's just how it goes. So his relationship with his parents is pretty damn bad. He sees them not as parents, he just sees them as people who've told him what to do, and he has not as much of affection for them.
Damn.
Okay.
Feels bad.
Sorry to bring down the mood.
Nah, dude.
No, you're good.
Chilling.
You're good.
Uh,
So,
Alright.
first of all, I apologize for my internet. I live on a military base, and the internet is not the best at times. So,
Oh,
cuts
brother,
in and
it's
out.
okay. I'm at a hotel right now. I think my internet's doing about the same.
Do you know
Yeah.
the question, Nick?
Yeah, the what relationship does your character have with their parents and siblings? I feel like I want to go with Abdiel on this one. Very interesting. So a bit of backstory. Abdiel, um, at the beginning of his character, was an amnesiac, uh, basically assassin, and the reason why he was amnesiac was because it turns out like his mother or a mother figure sent him away and wiped his memories because his father, on a quest for, I want to word this correctly, his father on a quest to gain back his kind of powers, um, with wild magic, got corrupted and started, um, being evil. He was turning Abdiel's siblings into basically killing machines and brainwashing them. And there were a few times in the campaign where Abdiel had to fight his own siblings and didn't realize they were his siblings until he had killed them or his party had killed them. And it led to a very interesting moment with one of his uh, one of his compatriots, Enoch, was Goliath. Basically, we had basically just found out that one of my older siblings was one of the mini bosses, and we had killed him and got in his masks and all that. And Nock asks Abdiel, "Hey, do you think your father is able to be redeemed or able to be saved?" And Abdiel responds, "Well, I'm pretty sure he's off the ledge and falling to the ground. I just have to help him the next 6 feet." So Abdiel in that moment was very already resigned to the fact that his father was too far gone and he'd have to kill his father at that moment. And he went forward he with that resolve that he was going to try to save the rest of his siblings. And he was able to save his brother's body after he killed them and put him into stasis, another one of his brothers. Um, and put his brother's body into stasis after they had killed him to hopefully figure out a unbrainwash effect, which never got resolved in the campaign. So it's gonna be problems for later, I guess. But his his sister at was it mid battle with another NPC called Nathaniel, who is this really talented, really powerful wizard. Um, that's part of a family from another character, player character, the Everetts, and basically Nathaniel kills his sister in front of him um with disintegrate and turns it into dust, and Abdiel, with his powers of the wild magic and the rift energy and the ley lines, basically looked at that, said no, i'm not I'm not accepting this. She's not dead. I'm gonna bring her back. And we did some more we did some more kind of rolls about it. Everyone helped, and we were able to bring my sister back from death and reformed. And
DC
he has
50
a very
check, by the way.
DC 50. Yeah, we did some crazy shit. Um, all this to say, it's a very complicated relationship with parents and siblings, but now he's got a good relationship with his sister Ashgar, and he got to have in what I assume was the afterlife or a version of it as a player. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll leave anything out there, Joe, or did I sum that up pretty nicely?
You summed it up okay. There's a lot of stuff that obviously doesn't come in. No, it's yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you're an idiot and dumb. No,
I forgot. I never remember correctly.
so from the DM aspect, uh, engineer, where are you from culturally?
Brazil,
Okay.
southern region.
Southern Brazil. Okay. So you are very familiar with Catholicism and the offshoots therefrom.
Yep.
So Abdiel's father, Resmir Al Arcanos, for those of you that play Pathfinder, that's where I took the name Resmir. Um, he was not just thought, he was a Jesus archetype. He literally smuggled hundreds, if not thousands, of people away from a world where they were victimized and hurt and hunted, and brought them to an Eden, a new Eden, a place where they could live and thrive and be okay. Due to the actions of the BBEG, the big bad evil guy of the campaign, he was warped slightly into believing that power is the only reason and the only way that you can save anybody. So he turned his four children into the four horsemen of the apocalypse. War and pestilence were Abdiel's older brothers. Abdiel was death, and Ashgar, the little sister, was famine. So I used those allegorical pulls in order to create a continuity of each of the siblings in context. Because the father, Resmir, was from Earth, uh, from Rift's Earth, if you guys are familiar with Rift's Savage Worlds or the Palladium systems. He was a hero and a savior, and then got corrupted afterwards, and had all the reason in the world to believe that he was still right. And that is kind of what kicked everything off regarding Abdiel's character. And yes, did they roll a 54 in a DC 50 check to undisintegrate somebody? Yes. It was incredibly out of pocket. It was ridiculously difficult, but they pulled it off. And because
It
of
was a
that,
very emotional moment for me.
it was the first time I've ever heard a player cry into a mic. And it changes you as a DM. Right? These questions, as I'm asking them, as I'm talking to you guys as players, as a DM, these are things that are useful things for me to know. But what's the most deeply and most abidingly impactful part of this is the emotional response to things and connection that are built by the player characters. So, for example, engineer, you are someone who plays a character that is a very good example of why playing an evil character is difficult, but also how to do it. Constant communication with the other players, constant communication ahead of time of what is you are anticipating or intending to happen. But in game, you're playing a character that does and represents X, whatever that X is. And it's very interesting and very important, especially for anybody who's trying to DM their first games or is a relatively new DM. Your players are going to have a worldview, and your player characters are going to have a worldview. The most important thing you can do is to reconcile both independent of one another. When you have players that are deeply kind and empathetic and soft, and I don't mean that in a negative way, they are just gentle and easy to interact with. The players have a dynamic. When you have player characters that have whatever their dynamic is, that is a very different problem and a very different thing to focus on. And it's very interesting in my experience how hard some people will go over the smallest things. Listening to somebody say, "No, I reject a reality and replace it with my own," and then roll some dice about it and do so, is amazing. But for me as a DM, and this is something that I recommend for all DMs, when you have a player that is so dead set and locked in on something that they will stand up and fight you over it, you did it. You've done something, you've hit something that they as a person will not let slide. And there is a well of depth and richness that is impossible to replicate or to fake in those moments. Um, who's next? Is it Jack or is it?
That's
Yeah,
me.
sure. It's you.
Is
Hey, bud.
me.
It's okay. It's you.
Yes, sir. So I will answer this from the point of view of Hugo. Um, Honestly, not a superly overly complex in terms of how much I need to say for this question, but as far as Hugo knows, he doesn't really know his family. He literally has zero idea of who his father is. His mother never told him, never really went on that too much. As far as he knows, he doesn't have any siblings either. The only figure in Hugo's life was his mother. His mother looked after him for many years, traveling place to place, kind of making ends meet, doing what he can. But after so long, um, his mother had to leave him for whatever reason. In Hugo's mind, his mother abandoned him, but the truth kind of lies, somewhere else perhaps. But he was left at an orphanage and in his eyes, abandoned, and was raised there for however many years until and he just kind of had to make try and live by himself for so long, never really having friends or definitely not family figure, and yeah, he just kind of doesn't really have any idea of what family truly is, or really just having anyone close to him really means. He's a
Yeah,
very to
that's.
himself character.
And it's funny that the characters that are the most gregarious tend to be the most internal, right?
Yeah.
Much like people. All right, Jack, you're going to answer this, and then we're going to move on to the random roll segment.
All right. Well, from the aspect of Molag was a son of a chieftain. We didn't really get much into his life, but we know that he was very family driven. Um, yeah, he was the son of a chieftain. He adored his parents until they got slaughtered by, the thing that he avenged. But that's Molag. Veruja's got a more in-depth view of her parents.
Yeah.
She loves them. She loves them to death with every fiber of her being. She knows that she'll always have a family to go back to, even though she is an orphan. Her adopted family, her, her father, her adopted father, and her adopted mother took care of her from such a young age and shaped her into the woman that she is. And there's nothing like that to her. Absolutely nothing like the love of your father, the love of your parents. Um, she would she would I mean, this goes back to her ideals of live and die for your family. She would sacrifice her life if it meant to keep her father alive or even bring her mother back from the dead.
Yeah.
Um, she's just that type of person. Family means everything to her, especially to someone that's been as loving and caring as Molag has been to her. Um, family's wicked important, and she loves her parents. She loves her parents deeply. Loves all of her siblings deeply. In the orphanage, her adopted siblings, of course, her actual brother too. But yeah, she's very, very family driven. Loves her parents. Strong relationship with them, and she wouldn't be who she is now without them.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
All right. So, with that, we're going to move on to the random segment. And you guys are all in the Discord. Um, so, engineer, I believe you are the first in the list. Roll me a D100. You can go to the Dice Maiden bot in the dice rolls section of the Discord, and just type in /roll 1D100, and tell me what you get.
Nice, 79.
79. What is the question? 79. What unusual talents does your character possess? All right. What unusual? Go for it.
My character. Talent is something innate, right? It's something that's not cultivated per se. Talent is something innate, right? By consideration. I'm sorry because I don't know English. It's not my first language, as I said. So
No,
some
you're
words
fine.
have double meaning.
Um,
Something.
Yeah, talent is something like yeah, something that's not. I mean, it can be harnessed. It can be something that's been learned. But what unique ability does your character kind of have that a lot of others don't?
um,
Oh no, you don't need to translate it, Axe. people define it as something innate that you're just born and you're instantly good at it. I'm just asking which definition you want to go with.
So we're gonna use the hard definition. The English implication for talent is an inborn or natural talent. I was looking up. So, for clarity, I speak French, Spanish, and I can work in a couple other languages. So I'm used to double checking how certain words translate over because English is a language of implication. We don't have good definitions when it comes to how we speak. Uh, so this would be natural talent or inborn talent, as opposed to cultivated talent. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so innate talent, I suppose, if I want to be playful, I just said that his talent is to pull solutions out of his ass. But I think his like most standing thing that he was born with was like a borderline unbothered willpower. He canonically, his rage is again homebrew. When he's actually focused on something, he doesn't need to make any checks against any spells that like try to sway his opinion. He doesn't get affected. I think his most incredible talent is just the sheer determination he has towards any of his goals. If you tell him to do something he has actually invested, little can stop him. He's willing to sacrifice half the world to get it done, and he has done it before. He had I think we had to kill like a mini boss, and because his curse quote unquote meter builds over time, his Eldritch Blast would be the equivalent of a small bomb, and he just went with it with zero hesitation because that guy was just someone in their way.
That tracks. That makes sense. Determination is something that's very inborn. It can be cultivated to a point, but if you don't have that trait, it's really hard to learn it. It's one of those things that's very pass fail or very binary in nature. If you are someone that has a strong force of will, you can refine that and train that to be an indomitable will. But if you lack that, it's incredibly hard to learn it. All right.
I think
Next
that
up.
like sorry.
No, no. What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
And I was gonna say that we had to like make it a dice roll for the sake of D&D, but outside of like the main campaign, mostly in like his backstory campaigns, he doesn't need to make checks against like mind control spells or overall curses. He can just walk through them without any type of damage because he's just that focused and dead set on his objectives. He said first session that he was going to kill a god. So far, it's been tracking and he's getting pretty close to it. He has like you're gonna laugh. He has like a glass shard that he made a deal with to be able to kill gods with.
It's funny because I have a very similar dynamic using the Lance of Longinus in my campaigns. The party may or may not have won the Blood War despite their best efforts. Pardon. All right. Next in line, we've got Nick.
Yes. Can you say the question for me again? I'm away from my computer at the moment.
You're rolling a D100, buddy.
Oh, I'm rolling a D100? Okay.
Yup.
Well, D100.
Alright, let me go back to my computer. Sorry, I am doing laundry, folding laundry. Because if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it at all.
Bro, same.
Bro doesn't give in to the procrastination. I'm proud of you.
Sometimes I do. Just me. Alright, cool. D100. 78. Wait, no, sorry, 87.
87. Okay.
I read that wrong.
Oh, so this isn't even fair because you already know the answer. What major arcana tarot card best represents your character?
Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That tracks. We've discussed this, like, it
We
in
have,
depth
weirdly enough.
so so many times. Abdiel is the embodiment of the Wheel of Fortune due to the amount of times he's a wild magic sorcerer, so every chance he gets to pull the luck in his favor is any chance he's gonna take. Because he has bad luck, and then he has tides of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's been more than one occasion where Abdiel has just pulled solutions out, and they're not the conventional solution. They're the I choose this as my own, and I am
Yeah,
a lucky son of a bitch.
that's. I mean, that is accurate. I'm not gonna lie. That's accurate as hell. All right. Next in line, we have Josh.
Okay, I'm just gonna roll on the.
Roll me a 1d100.
I got a wow. I got a 2. Holy shit.
Uh,
We already did that. Can I re-roll? Because we already did that.
We did. Go ahead.
34.
All right, 34. What does your character admire and dislike the most about the player character sitting to your left? So
Okay,
we
so
will
who
say
would that be for frame of reference? Yeah.
it would be, I would say right, so clockwise. So right would be moving down the list, left would be moving up the list. So I guess you're stuck talking about Abdiel.
What do I like and dislike the most?
Yeah, what do you admire and dislike the most about Abdiel as a character? Because Ash has met Abdiel.
Ash has met Abigail. Uh, well, from the point of view of Ash, first of all, I admire everything about you. That's
Mm, you
don't
want that
fucking
eight
question
pack?
that for a second. Love that 8 pack. Love your ability to just paralyze the dude who knocked me unconscious. Love that shit. Good job. No, but what do I admire most? Let's see. Um, mm-mm-mm. I would say. I mean, shit. I did we really talk a lot? I mean, yeah, we were together for like 2 weeks, right?
For like
Like
two
checking.
sessions, yeah. I tried. For my best efforts, I did try to talk to you all as a party.
I don't
He
know
You
how
were
really
much I
did.
engaging
really.
me.
I don't really know how much I communicated with Abdiel, if at all.
Not a lot. I'll just say
Not a
No,
that.
lot.
Not a lot.
kind of hard. I mean, I admire
All
his
right.
fucking
Then you know what? We're
strong
just going to
stuff.
say, we're just going to move it down. Now you're talking to Jack.
Okay.
Yeah, Veruja, what do
Uh,
you like?
I'll. Ah, God, this hurts. Painful.
Come on now, flatter me.
Do it.
Um,
One more time? I only heard the tail end.
oh, yeah, no, you are completely out of loop character-wise. All right, well, we can do a quick summary, right? So,
Yeah, go for it. Do a quick summary. I'm gonna
um,
grab water. You do a quick summary real quick.
my character I portray is he's just he's a bard warlock. He's just a playful musician who is can be quite a bit of a dick sometimes, very deceptive in nature. Um, and is he kind of tries to get along with certain people. Me and specifically me and Jack's character Veruja had a bit of a hard time uh, relating and getting along. A lot of arguments, a lot of in general stuff. Do you want to go describe your character real quick, Jack? So just a little bit easier to explain.
Uh,
Like you do your character real quick.
Verja's very, very reserved. Very like, if I don't know you, get the fuck out of my face, type of character. But once you get to know her, kind of like what I was describing before, like once you get on her good side, once you become family to her, she will die for you. She will actually like put her life on the line, live, breathe, and die for you. But getting to know her is the tricky part. Getting to know her is is the part that she's very reserved about and very closed off and won't let anybody that she doesn't know get near her. Hold on, you're wicked quiet. Let me turn your audio up.
Yeah.
What'd you
So
say? I just turned your audio up.
you are really quiet. Sorry. No, still really quiet on my end. Mm-mm-mm.
I just turned your audio up to 200%. I can kind of hear you.
Yeah. Just
Just start speaking like this.
that's fine. I can tell what you're saying, at least.
Nice. That's what matters.
Cool. All right. Well, let's see. So yeah, in general, all you gotta know is very fucking stern character and fucking kind of an asshole-ish character. They're both kind of assholes, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie, but they don't particularly get along well. So it's kind of funny that I have to compliment this motherfucker over here.
Exactly. What do you like about her? Her strength, her ability to kill you with one look.
Yeah, I think what I what I do admire about Veruja is I feel like she definitely has like an undeniable she gives like very strong like leader, I know what I'm doing kind of character. I've been through this kind of situation a million times.
Yeah.
Like she very outside of combat, she can be a bit of an asshole and definitely, is not the nicest person. But, in combat and in dire straits, like she is willing to she definitely locks in and actually is willing to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And for dislike for your character, yes, that's my answer.
That's accurate, actually. All right, Jack.
Yes.
I believe you are next, or yeah, I believe you're next.
All right. I'm just gonna, since I'm on my phone, I'm just gonna use Google
That's
to
fine.
roll me a D100. $11. Did we get there?
We
No.
didn't get there.
All right.
Describe your character's current relationship with Hugo, or with Ash, whichever you would go with.
Well, I would say that my character does have a relationship with Ash, like canonically.
That is true, actually.
But I'll keep it interesting. I'll go describe the relationship with Hugo. Um, Veruja's relationship with Hugo. Now that's an interesting one. Um, she sees she sees this overly cocky, annoying, fuck boy
Keep going, I'm almost there.
who, yeah, this overly cocky, annoying fuckboy who she wants absolutely no, has absolutely no interest in, wants no part of, but at the same time, she sees this character and not admires, but kind of
Respects, maybe.
respects, yeah, for how he is, respects kind of what he is, but not a very not a very hard respect, and definitely not a respect that you'd see but
Yeah.
she sees something in him. She just doesn't quite know what yet. Ash is like an uncle to her though. Ash is just one of Molag's best friends. Just you know how like your your dad's best friend is like an uncle to you. That's just kind of how Ash is.
Yep. That tracks. It would make sense that Varouge would like him as like the fun uncle because he was the most childlike and the most
Right.
like emotionally honest. So, we're going to cut from this slightly. All of you are players in general. Is anybody here? I know Nick, you are engineer. Are you? Do you DM or do you just mostly play?
I loosely DM because some of my friends like a series called Wings of Fire, and we thought it was really fun, but there's no way to translate that into D&D. So I don't really DM D&D. I just administer a very elaborate sort of roleplay thing. It's just mostly roleplay because combat is. I retested it. It was awful both with D&D and homebrew rules. So we just homebrew. So we just interact.
Okay. So we're going to do. I was going to do like a greater. This is how DMs interact with these sorts of characters as a group. I'm going to put that off for a moment. You said Wings of Fire is the property or the source material that your friends like, right?
Yeah, they like it. It's a series about dragons, and I thought dubiously that let's just use the D&D dragon stats. Didn't work because D&D dragon stats can get a bit absurd. So it just didn't really work, and instead we just like made a little set of rules, loose rules, but in the end we kind of just we started just using it as a glorified roleplay. They are combat encounters, but we pretty much just juke it out. It's more fun. I'm not really experienced. I could. I DM like an actual D&D game. If I put my mind to it, I could. But you know, they don't know D&D, and in the end, it's just good fun.
Okay. So Wings of Fire is a property that I'm. This is my first time hearing about it, but I have imported a lot of things into D&D, specifically 5th edition. That's the D&D generation that I have the most experience with. That's a lot of books. 15 books. Okay. Well, that takes me back to being a much younger person reading Dragon Riders of Pern and the Sword of Shannara and a bunch of late 80s, early 90s fantasy books that are not great, but are deeply fun. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So, we're going to do something that I was going to save for a later date. And um, I'm going to say some things. I'm going to approach this. I'm going to do what I do. And I want you specifically, because everybody else here knows me and knows like where I approach things from. And I want you to know that I'm going to come from here with the most positive and well meaning of intentions and the utmost grace. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Makes sense though. Don't worry.
Okay. So, first and foremost, importing certain fantasy tropes, genres, and specifically books into 5th edition D&D is very difficult. All right. It just is. Now, your Wings of Fire novel series is, I mean, it kind of hits me right where I live because it's the kind of high fantasy nonsense that I fucking live and breathe for. Does that make sense? Like, oh no, who's into this? Oh shit, it's me. I'm into this. That's the kind of the feeling I have, right?
I understand it perfectly.
Um, we're going to. I'm gonna skip this. Oh, there's a television series adaptation. Holy shit. Okay.
It's coming. It has been coming for like 10 years.
Oh, it's one of those. Oh no, we're working on it, guys. I promise.
Yeah, it's pretty much like every couple of months, I loosely accompany because interacting with any fan base is against my very core. So I loosely accompany via my friends who are in the fan base, and like every couple of months, there's some new stuff. It's always coming the end of this year.
Okay, you know what? Yes, I. As someone who spent years reading Robert Jordan, as someone who has spent years uh, reading and watching things like Hunter x Hunter, just properties that are not done on our side, but done on the side of the person doing it, and they just never put anything else out. I see you. You're valid. You're right. We're the victims here. Okay. Um. So I'm looking at this, and this really does strike me as second generation 1980s fantasy, and I mean that in literally the best of ways. Um.
It was launched in late 2010s.
Well, I'm old and my bones hurt now, so we're just gonna agree to disagree and just agree to not talk about this anymore because. Anyway, when it comes to importing properties, and I'm going to be. Let me give you an example of some of the properties that I've brought in, and I have various players that can back this up. So I have integrated. Are you familiar with Western, like the big three anime?
Naruto, Dragon Ball, and I'm gonna take a wild guess and say My Hero Academia. I think I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, good for you. You still have 50 to 60 years of being a sweet, delicious, amazing person. For those of us that are older and our bones are more crunchety, um, the big three references One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. The big three came after the undisputed king of shonen, which was Dragon Ball, and then the new gen, which is My Hero Academia, um, Demon Slayer, and well, there's a few others that could contend for it, but I don't. I'm not gonna make any assertions. Let's say. Um,
In fact, I've never watched any anime. The only anime I've watched is Mashable Magic and Muscles.
well, that's only because the opening song is a fucking bop.
Really, I just found it by pure accident. I've never heard of the opening song meme until I got into it.
Okay, so you're. I'm gonna be real with you. There's a lot of opening songs. The most iconic opening song in anime history is not even the most popular anime, not by a long shot. It's Cruel Angel's Thesis. Um, I'm going to. I'm going to look up something. Da, da, da.
It's already
Okay.
so good.
Well, so here's the reason I bring it up is this. In my games, and this is something I realized like 3 years into DMing, I tend to run anime paced campaigns. Because of that, I have a certain rhythm and a certain style of description of things. And I asked mostly because I know that uh, global anime reach is very hit and miss in every country. We've got 151 countries in the world, and more than three quarters of them have some subsection of things, but the overlap is very minimal, right? Does that make sense? Um, so, for example, I have integrated Bleach, Jujutsu Kaisen, uh, and bits and pieces of other things over time as a DM. Now, the reason I bring this up is because you guys have talked at length about how your characters operate in context. And for me, looking at the five-man band and the way that various different groups have a dynamic puts me in a position where the five-man band shonen trope makes sense. I have Nanatsu no Taizai, Seven Deadly Sins, in my campaign 1. Nick, you were a player in that. Abdiel was a player in that. And you got to see what Cruel Sun looks like whenever imported into D&D 5th edition.
Oh yeah, it's a monster.
It's a monster. When importing something from a non-D&D source into 5th edition specifically, because that's the one I have the most experience with, for lack of a better phrase, the intended level of power, the intended impact, and the intended goals are kind of what you focus on. The reason I bring this up is because I, as primarily a DM, questions like this, conversations like this, give me the ability to really understand where my players come from. And listening and learning to various people, or from various people, is something that is necessary for somebody like me to be able to interact with you guys. Jujutsu Kaisen. Have you heard of that, engineer? And again, I'm asking you these questions as a matter of understanding. I am not implying anything from any of this. I just want to know if you have context for any of these questions and comments.
I'm familiar with the Na Adwin anime. Yes.
Okay. So my campaign 1, 4.5 year campaign, I had players, each of them got a domain expansion, which is just, what is your trauma? We're going to make that a superpower, and then you're going to just have to do lines of copium until you are able to understand and relate to it, which is fine. I find it very interesting, and most of my players find it very interesting, but not everybody will, right? Everybody's different. Cruel Sun, the Gallows Tree, My Brother's Keeper. All of these things are anime references, and at first it wasn't on purpose, it was an accident, but then we ended up where we ended up, and now we're here. As a DM, importing concepts from other systems and other sources of lore and world building, I guess is the best way to put it, puts you in a position where you have to kind of balance things. So a dragon from Pern, a dragon from Earthsea, and a dragon from Lord of the Rings are 3 vastly different categories of power. Does that make sense? When you're engaging in a source media that is not designed for 5th edition, not designed for D&D, creating a sense of balance is very difficult, but it's also very important. And for me, my argument, my position has always been, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? I'll make it work. That doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. It just means I'm going to make it work. And you, as a DM, especially given the rise of TTRPGs over the last 8 to 12 years, where you're from, at least as far as I understand it. So correct me where I am wrong. I'm not speaking as an authority, I'm speaking as somebody with some relationship to this information. Does that make sense?
But yeah, I lived in Brazil my entire life. I've never heard anyone within my entire university say they know D&D.
Okay. So it's very new for you, right?
No, it's new. It's not new because, fun fact, I got introduced to Dungeons and Dragons via watching The Big Bang Theory because it was the only show that passed at the time I was awake. So I got introduced to that, and
Okay,
from
that's
there I just went with.
that's very interesting. I have to do a lot of research and learn a lot about the interplay between these things. So, again, correct me where I am wrong or if I say something that you dispute because you, in this conversation, are the authority on your group, let's say. As a DM, as somebody who has played for going on 7 years and looking at the way that things operate, importing concepts, constructs, allegories from various different medias is something that is both time consuming and difficult, but deeply necessary. Some people aren't fantasy fans, they're sci fi fans, and vice versa. Because of this, being able to create a range of power of strong versus weak versus average or median is very difficult but also very necessary. Looking at how D&D has spread, especially over the last 10 years, we are in a position where D&D 5th edition especially is way more popular than any other edition. But given the OGL debacle and a bunch of other things that have happened over the last 3 years, we are in a position where TTRPGs are being pushed up by D&D, but D&D itself is kind of lagging behind due to its own limitations and strictures that exist. All of this conversation, this entire stream, this entire interaction, and again, thank you for joining in and talking to us because I need a much bigger bubble than I have. All of us live in a world of bubbles. The bubble that is what I think is normal, what I think is good, my family, my upbringing, etc., etc., etc. I need bigger bubbles and more disparate bubbles further removed from where I am. If I am going to provide the best service I can for people, which is being a good DM, I have to be able to understand more and more and more people. Which is partially why I asked what your native language was, because I'm used to dealing with internationals when it comes to work in general. But I normally exclusively deal with Mandarin Chinese, French, Italian, Spanish, um, Norwegian, German, Austrian, things of that nature. Western Europe and mainland China. And those are 30 countries out of 151. Not a majority of places. So I have a lot of limitations in this context. There's a lot of things that I don't know and I can't do, and I'm trying to learn those skills and refine those abilities. As a DM, my job is to make sure everybody is engaged, feels seen, feels heard, and is having an emotionally impactful experience. It doesn't mean every game is going to be fun. It doesn't mean every game is going to be joy. It just means that all of it's going to matter. And the reason I bring all this up and just circle back and kind of wrap it all up is because as a DM, my job is to ensure that my players, when they are playing, are living in a world that has verisimilitude and that has stakes. The only way to do that is to understand my players and to leverage things against their player characters that are intimate, impactful, or important to the player. Does this make sense? So we're going to use an example. Josh, why do you think that the person that survived at the end of your campaign was your mother? Why do you think I chose that?
The way I saw that was you giving me a choice of do I want to like be with, you know, my family that I've like found, right? Or go back to what everything once was and actually go back to you know, my actual, you know, real mother and not just my brothers.
Okay. Would you like to know my version of that interaction? You, having known you for a few months, having interacted with you a lot, you strike me as the prodigal son, the good son, who has a very close relationship with your parents, but a closer relationship with your mother. This was me playing you as a person, not your character. Because I felt that that would resonate, and you were in a position where the game not only allowed but demanded an interaction in this context. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
You had locked in on siblings, which implies an only child. You had locked in on the older, bigger siblings, which implies a young in comparison to peer child. And you existed as a character, well, your Ash existed as a character who was inquisitive, empathetic, but awkward and was willing to let everybody else speak first or do what they wanted and would only really speak up if there was a conflict. Which leads me to believe that you are somebody who prioritizes the motherly relationships over the more patriarchal relationships. That was my assumptions at the time. Whether or not it's accurate is a different story, but that was my understanding of the time, and that's why I did things the way that I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely does.
Looking at characters like, for example, Engineer, who is running a, in most games would be an evil character. It is just a character that has a very, very, very strong self-identity and rebukes external change. Versus Abdiel's character, who rebukes internal constructs for external change. They are diametrically opposed along the axis of I know what I'm about, so I will fight anybody who disagrees, versus I know what I'm about, so I will listen to anybody who is different from me because I know what I'm about. Does that make sense? Characters like that are very difficult to run in D&D, especially as a DM when you have I love everybody and I want everyone to have snacks versus hey you made eye contact? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. These are aspects of characters that exist but are fundamentally opposed in a lot of ways. And my goal, like my long-term goal, is to be able to run paid DMing, do D&D for people, because I, having 6 years of experience with very different groups, feel that I can offer good D&D. But the thing that I have to internalize is when a player has a strong idea for a character, that has to be true. So I have endeavored to let that be true and to make that true and accurate. And as a DM, one of the hardest things is to have a really cool, fun, clever storyline and have a player who's just going to look at it and hit it with a hammer and go, why use many words when few words work? But that's half the fun. Our job as DMs is to take those moments and make them fun and interesting and rewarding for the players. And all of this was just an exercise, not only in learning the mechanics of running Twitch, but also the mechanics of interacting with players in the context of how the players feel about their characters. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
All right.
I don't respond. I have no social cue reading.
Look, as somebody mathematically perfectly on the spectrum, fuck you, fight me,
Same.
I get it. I get it. It's hard. We're doing something that is incredibly cooperative and requires communication with other people. But when you are not a neurotypical individual, it's almost painfully hard to do, right? The most important thing that I could tell you in the context of that comment or interaction is that most people are empathetic, emotional, and intelligent enough, one, two, or three of those, to clock the dynamic and try. I have very real difficulties with implication, and because of that, I tend to be very long winded and specific in the way that I communicate, which is off putting to some people. If you are doing your best to play your character, to play the game, to communicate with people, it is important, in my opinion, to understand how they're hearing your words. As somebody who has done that poorly for a very long time and has just recently gotten better at it, my job is to communicate to you what I need you to understand or want you to believe. And that means that if you aren't, I have to do the legwork. But in the context of D&D, that means that I have to, hey guys, we're going to talk above table and I'm going to clarify some things. And that's fine, as long as everybody at the table trusts one another, communicates with one another, and has a position where they are supporting one another. There is no level of difficulty that can't be overcome by the effort of the rest of the players. And I'm telling you that from like personal experience. As someone who is bad at communication, bad at speaking to people, bad at understanding people, bad at internalizing the emotional states of people, in my experience, I find that just attempting and then listening, learning, and refining works very well. It's hard and it sucks, but it's worth doing, if that makes sense. That being said, if you like this enough to keep trying, you'll get there eventually. As a player, as a DM, as anything that you want to be.
You're obviously confused and aroused.
That is
How
true.
did you know?
But that being said, it is. We're getting close to the end times. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to open. I'm going to open up I'm going to open up the table to everybody else. And we're going to ignore the questions that I have, which, again, scroll, 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 scroll. Gray Jedi Luke. All of these, 10 out of 10, great questions. But I'm going to open it up to you guys. Because as a DM, most of my job is to listen. What questions do you have for each other or me that might actually do something for you? Clarify something, teach you something, answer a question that you deep down inside have always wanted to ask, but you couldn't trust with anybody else. It doesn't matter how petty or how grand, how big or small it might be. It doesn't even matter if it's, well, why do dwarves call elves knife ears? I don't give a shit what it is. What questions do each of you have that you actually want to know? In context, in continuity, in game, or just as a general question in the overarching TTRPG family. And I or other people at the table will endeavor to answer based on what we know and can do. And we're going to start at the bottom this time because we're going to bully some people. The last in the Discord, I believe, is Jack. All right, Jack, come up with a question. I'm going to hit the head real quick, but I can hear you.
All right. Let me think.
Yeah, I've been doing
Okay.
nothing but thinking, Jack. So don't worry.
I've got a question. How does it feel as a DM? How does it feel as a DM when a player kind of gives you free reign for their story? Like I already kind of hinted at this towards Josh and Los, or I might have just said it flat out. But for example, like I kind of know generally where my story's gonna go, but I kind of told you to, you know, make it to make Veruja's like the certain aspect. I'm sure you remember what we were talking about. I don't want to get too deep into it, but like I kind of told you, I want to be surprised as well. You know, make this story happen
Okay.
this way. How does that like fare for a DM?
Okay. Engineer, would you like to answer that question as a DM first?
I can answer, but he's you, so I think it's fair that you go first.
That's reasonable. It is an insane amount of pressure and also one of the most freeing things.
Yeah.
Because what I can do is take that pressure and integrate that into the greater world, integrate that into NPCs, and drop little fragments of that in the way of the party or other PCs to see how they react. When you have a hang up or a question or a desire towards something, and I drop one of those in front of somebody else to see how they act, I can see how you react. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
But for me as a DM, on this side of the screen, so to say, it's so much work and so much effort that has never, ever gone unrewarded. When a player puts their backstory or their future in my hands.
Yeah.
Nick is a prime example. The greatest character I've ever made was not a character that I played.
Okay, I
The
see that.
the single greatest character I ever made for D&D was Abdiel. And that was because 80% of it was on him to make choices. And the more he made choices that conflicted with my assumptions, my interpretations, my goals and desires, the greater the friction, the more heat was created, the brighter the flame of creativity and interaction burned. So when a player does that, it is both a deeply intimate interaction of trust, but it's also something that puts me as a DM on the back foot and forces me to spider things out like cracks in glass as to what it attaches to and what it interacts with. When a player has decided that they don't have a future or don't have a past, I can lean into that and I can decide what it is, but at that point, it's all on me. So I have to get it right the first time, which makes it difficult, but also makes it deeply and utterly rewarding. Does that make sense?
That does.
So for Veruja, for example, you have snippets and assumptions about everything from when she was 3 to when she is in her mid-20s. I'm the only one that knows exactly what happened. And I try to communicate that in impactful and broad strokes. Does that make sense?
Yes. That makes complete sense.
So when your character comes home and sees her father, your previous player character, and then the party stops at a painting of your mother that has lilies in a vase in front of it, that touches on 4 campaigns. But what it also does is it allows you the freedom to have your interpretation and reaction to things. It puts all the work on me, but all I have to do is the attempt and the intent, and you do whatever you want with it, and then we work together.
Yeah.
When you look at a picture of your mother and you see not the woman you want to be when you grow up, but the woman who, in your heart of hearts, is commanding that you become the woman that you're going to be. That's a very fine line to tread, but it also gives absolute authority and control to the player.
Yeah.
In a very weighted manner. When I say, for example, in the last combat you guys had, and I said, you all see for all the world her mother's daughter. You've locked in on what that means in your perspective and your understanding of the situation, correct?
Right.
And now it's up to us to communicate to one another what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I get that.
So for me, that's what it's like. When a player gives me carte blanche to do something, I now have a deep and personal responsibility to do it well, to do it right, to do it with love and care and understanding for that player. And it's hard.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. That's a good answer.
It's hard, but it's worth. It's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
All right, your turn, engineer. You're a DM. Everybody else here, I have taught them how to DM, but they're not DMs yet. So, your turn.
So,
Ouch.
my reason I have a deep
You're a better DM than me. Shut up.
But I have a morbid, borderline morbid fascination in watching people react to things. My Most of my players, the word like players, only two of them actually play D&D. Most of them loosely knew the concept, which is why I made my simplified versions of D&D. You just have to roll. There's like only a D20, a D10, and a D4. We are going to get into actual D&D, but it was just going to hook them up. And they had no idea what to do. They had no idea how to make a character. They knew of the work because we're playing based on Wings of Fire, which is existing work. So
Mm-hmm.
they loosely knew like what to name their characters, what their backgrounds would be, but they didn't know how to do it. So I've convinced them to have backstory sessions to kind of grasp what they wanted. And at first, it is amazing to me. Like I cannot say that I feel like a strict pressure. Of course, I feel responsibilized for making a good story. I feel responsible all the time for making a good story, for making something entertaining. I take like one of our sessions went for like 8 hours, so I feel very
Been there.
responsible for for the fun they're having or not having. Try to make it fun for everyone. Not everyone can enjoy it. Not everyone is like present enough, but I try.
Mm-hmm.
So when a player just tells me that they want me to do whatever I want, one of my players just talked to me in mid game and just said, "Hey, can you do X happen?" I just asked, "Sure. How do you want it to happen?" I just said, "Oh, make fun." I feel obligated to come up with the most unconventional, stupid way possible because I just love seeing their reactions. It sounds cliche. I'm not gonna say like a professional storyteller, but it feels amazing to just watch their reactions when I just make the. It's gonna sound really weird out of context, but when I make the 7-year-old child just turn the god of time into mush with a power word,
Yeah.
it it was amazing. I don't record, but I keep that in my mind because it is amazing to watch people's reactions. So when a player gives their full reign to me, gives me their backstory, and just says, "Hey, do whatever you want with it," I feel, oh, there's of course, just make the regular backstory. I feel obligated to come up with the most batshit insane thing I could possibly muster. I don't care what it is. I don't know what it is. I never know what I'm going to say. Autism, thank God. Never know what I'm going to say. So, watching their reactions is just the fuel that drives me. So,
Yeah.
to answer the question more concisely, when a player gives me total reign to do whatever I want, I just feel obligated. Not pressured because I love this, I absolutely adore it, so it's not a pressure, but I feel obligated to deliver the best I can and to get the best reaction possible out of them.
Yeah. Good answer. I like that too.
That is, I cannot stress enough how much that is a real DM response to things. I want everybody to have fun and to be happy and for everything to be great. That's not fun D&D. What's the most fucked up thing I can do to you? What can I do to you that makes you look at me and go, I'll fucking kill you? That's the shit I do. That's what a good DM does. A good DM takes the most, like you said, the most batshit thing, the most batshit response to something, and doubles and triples down and goes, oh, you want to be a farmer? Well, here's magical corn that kills everybody for 1,000 miles. Don't fuck it up, I guess. And that's what it feels like sometimes, right? It's hard to put to words sometimes, but it's so much fun when people do that and you just leverage that with and against them. And like, oh, go ahead, Nick. You were my DM for a little
I was
while.
your DM.
You did.
I was your DM for a little bit.
You did so much better than me when I was at your quote unquote age of DMing. So you answer the question too.
I think for me, it's an awesome responsibility, and I mean that in the adjective and not the adverb
Got
definition
it.
of being extremely impressive or daunting. Um, it like you've got the power to either make or break this character. Yeah, it's based on their choices, but you've got the power to basically say, all right, cool, like this is what your backstory's like, or you interact with something, and well, now you've got a flashback to, oh, you were a prisoner during the Blood War that you just forgot. Now you're here. You're just remembering this because it's trauma locked. You don't remember that, and doing something outlandish like that to see the player response to it either be like really locked into it or god forbid really not interested in it or just repulsed by your decision. I think that's my I want to make people's characters fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do something that it's going to leave a player with a sense of, well, he just kind of fucked up my character, or I don't really jive with what he did. Um, so I mean, succinctly, it's an awesome responsibility. You want to make sure that whatever you're going to do is going to be received well, and I think that sometimes some things hit, some things miss, but otherwise that's my fear. I fear that I'm going to fuck up the player's character in an unintentional way whenever
It's
I do
very
things with their
it's very
backstory.
much a situation where I can do whatever I want. What should I do? Not what can I do. What should I do? Right?
Correct.
That makes sense. All right, we're gonna wrap this up because we are running out of time, and I have a lot of adult responsibilities to do. Sad
That
face.
means I have responsibilities now.
So we're just gonna go from the bottom back up, and that leaves engineer as the last, as our newest friend and compatriot in this, the absolutely madcap game of imagination and fun. I believe it's Jack. It is Jack. If you'd be so kind, you as a player get to ask me as a DM any question you want.
Yeah, I just
What
did.
do you?
That's the whole rant was about.
All right, well, fine then. We're gonna move on, and you think of another question.
Okay. All right. Hold on.
All right.
I could come up with a good question. Hold on.
Sure, whatever.
Give me 2 seconds. Let me come up.
Oh wait, Los joined into the fucking Discord. Los,
Yeah, let's press
Los.
Los.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa.
Hey, bienvenidos a la fiesta. ¿Qué pregunta tienes para mí? Porque estoy en DM y estás un jugador. ¿Qué es esto que quieres saber?
I don't speak Spanish, but I'm assuming he explained to you what to do.
Literally what I, yes, 100%. And my Spanish
Ask
isn't
him a fucking
perfect.
question.
Hey, bud.
I have a
You're-
question if you need.
Mi
time to
pregunta
think.
es, pero
Oh, English. I don't speak Spanish.
English or Spanish?
if my question had to be one thing for the DM, it definitely has to do with world building.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
When you think of your deities, does your topography of like the land come into play?
All right, I've got to put an entire other playlist for this. Nope, I think I have a couple more songs. because you have asked a very good question, and now I need to answer that question honestly and directly. I'm just going to grab this playlist, and then I'm going to put it into the Discord, just in case this runs a little bit longer than I intended. All right. So, I run my world building off of linguistic anthropology. That allows me to create or to identify rather, not create, identify where each particular group or clade of people exist. Utilizing the natural flow of linguistics from the pre-Indo-European split, from Latin to French and Spanish and Portuguese, German, or the old Proto-Germanic languages, into Germanic and Dutch and Anglican or English. The overlaps of these different languages. It allows me to have a time frame and a graph of these things. So when you have a group or a space that speaks the old Draconic tongue, which would be High German, that's where the Draconic pantheon has sway. And then as it disseminates out and then ends up overlapping with Common as English, because that is my mother tongue, you can see the distillation of the Draconic pantheon into the human pantheons, and where do they overlap and how does that work? The physical geography of the worlds that I build the world, I build the geography off of plate tectonics, off of actual physics and chemistry, but the flow of culture, of race, of language is ultimately derived from linguistic anthropology. So because of that, there's a reason why Sylvan is French, because Sylvan as an old tongue is tied to the other primordial adjacent tongues, not the true primordials of Ignan, Orin, Aquan, and what's the Earth one? That's bothering me. I'm going to Google it.
Primordial?
No, look. You're right. I don't have to agree, but you're right. The Earth primordial language is it not? It's not Gaian. Oh, there it is. Terran. It's Terran. That's obvious. Terran. Aquan, Orin, Ignan, and Terran are offshoots of primordial. But the other elder languages, like Sylvan, are Latin dialects, because, again, as a native English speaker, Latin is the oldest true language, because predecessors like Sanskrit and pre-split linguistics have very little bearing on modern English. Does that make sense? So, because of that, Latin is what I went with. So I split it into Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. And then certain clade languages are like Romanian, which is a Latin language with a Cyrillic script. And even though I am god awful, throw things at me bad at Portuguese, Italian, French, and Spanish are languages that I can understand and interact with. That's why I did that in that order. And as an English speaker, French, because it came into English twice in two different chronological clades in two different points in time, I have, and as somebody who is trained in those, I have a certain relationship with those. So Sylvan in my world is French. So dans les premières fois qu'une personne sylvaine dit le premier mot et campagne, il y a beaucoup de structures spécifiques, mais il y a un peu parce qu'il n'y a pas un meilleur mot. Ceci, c'est une langue spécifique et vraie, mais pas dit officielle. So because of that, and I apologize for any real French speakers out there because I am pretty dog shit at it. It's been many years since I've used it on a regular basis. Those languages dictate where different races go, where different groups of people go. And so my world building is built around linguistics because that is the most direct flow of people that can be traced in anthropology. It's not genetics. Because all it takes is one really tall African guy to get balls deep in a bunch of Western Europeans to fuck up that particular diagram. But language is different. It's cultural. It is as ingrained in a person as their genetics, and harder to hide and change. So because of that, that's what I use. So the deities that I invoke are tied to the lore and religious aspects and myths of those different groups, and the particular races per canonical D&D lore that are participating in those contexts. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I was on the spot.
Okay, I have to ask to make sure that I didn't run off on a tangent like a 3-year-old with a fucking gecko. Way over there. I've got a lizard run.
Hell yeah.
Right? All right. So, yeah, that's Los. Jack, did you come up with something, or are you just going to sit over there sad in the corner?
Well, I am sitting over here sad in the corner, but I do have a question.
Okay.
Or had a question. Let me remember what it was.
My poor EP boy.
It's bad, bro. It's bad.
I get it.
Fuck, what was my question? It's actually a pretty good question too.
We can move on while you think about it. You just interject and tell me what it is, and then we will remember that for the next rotation.
See, I got a question.
Yes, come back to me. Come back to me. I'll have it next time.
I
Okay.
just got
I'll
here, but I
remember.
got a good one.
So hold on to your question because you were at the end of the list. So we're going to skip Jack again because he hates me and just wants me to be
You did
sad.
have the first question, to be fair.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Am I talking shit? Only a little bit, but only because I love you. Josh, it's your turn.
Too bad.
Waldo, hold on to your question. Write it down if you have to.
I'll remember it. It's good.
Okay.
I just have well, actually, I have like an actual question, and I just have a question. If you choose not to answer whatever, or you can't think of any of those things as a response, that's fine for the first thing. But I've been a player for what, like a little over 4 months, right?
Yeah. You're a very new player.
4 months.
About 4.5 months now.
What is there any aspect that you think I can improve upon?
Yes. Absolutely.
What's that?
You design characters, and this touches on some of the other players that I've had. You design a character that has a very solid concept, and then whenever it's time for you to engage with that concept, you don't know what to do.
Yep.
This is normal. This is a normal problem, okay? This is a normal problem. Most players have it. I've had it. Nick had it. The only person I know that didn't have it is Olive, and she's been playing D&D 5 times as long as I have. Okay? Well, 3.5. But hyperbole aside. If you want to be a sultry fuckboy, be sultry. If you want to be a snarky asshole, be snarky. Be an asshole. If you want to be a brilliant nerd, be a brilliant nerd. And if you don't know how to do those things, you come to me outside of the game, and I will help you to reach those places. That's my job, is to help you be what you want to be. Does that make sense? And this isn't a negative. This isn't me saying, oh, you're a worthless piece of shit, and I'm glad your grandpa hit you with a pipe. What I'm saying is you have decided, you as a person and as a player decided to bite off a big fucking chunk of how to play D&D. And you're having difficulty getting it down. You need to come to me so that we can work through it, as opposed to sitting on your pride. And when it's time for you to do something, you don't know what or how to do it. Does that make sense? The best thing I can do for you is when you decide on what your character concept is I support you and I help you be that person. Which is what I want. I want you to be who you want to be. It's just very hard when I don't know what the flaw is and you won't come to me or don't come to me. Not that this is a deliberate decision, but when you don't or won't come to me about it, we can't work on that before the session or outside the session. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember my question.
Okay. What was your question? You remembered it. What is it?
I remembered it. So before I forget it again. So, when a party, how do you deal with this as a DM when a party is hellbent, right? Okay, so a party is hellbent on going through door A, right? Everyone in the party's like, yes, door A is the way to go. We need to go to door A. Like, no doubt in my mind, door A is what we need to go through. How do you deal with that as a DM when you know door A is death and door B is the way that you need to go without straight up saying, hey, door A is death, door B is the way you need to go? Don't do that.
That's a very good question. An engineer, I know you know what this is like, playing the quote-unquote evil character in your game. You've been that guy, right?
Absolutely, dude. Every time I've led them, I've led them since session 1. I just made all the possible cues. I told them specifically out of character, of course, in the private chat, like, hey, I'm gonna be playing kind of a bastard. Watch out for what he says, because he's canonically just not the smartest. He's very methodical, he's very precise, but he's not the smartest. He lets things slip. So I just said, hey, watch out, because you're gonna fuck up. And then immediately they pick up a cursed item that I warned them about
every fucking time, right?
There was every time. Okay, so here's the context. We entered like a rundown supply store because every time a party needs to buy supplies, and this guy just started offering us pearls, and I used of my character to say, hey, that guy's selling us cursed shit. I even threatened the guy. They cast detect magic. Detect magic returns negative, and they just take the pearls with no further questions.
Because it's a curse.
Insane. Yes.
No,
How? Because the DM giggled.
you were a victim. You were a victim, all right? You were a victim here. That was on them. They did this to you, all right? I'm going to be honest with you.
I know.
So, as a DM, I don't do the quantum ogre nonsense. In a moment where my party should know better, I ask for an intelligence or wisdom roll from the party. In a context or a situation where they don't have that information, their characters don't have that information, I make sure that they have an opportunity to make a roll to potentially divine that information. Perception, investigation, arcana, things of that nature. My players should be able to trust me as the DM that when they make a choice, they're making an informed decision. And if your character just keeps rolling threes on all of these roles to understand the situation. You as a player, and anybody that wants to whine about metagaming, I'll meet you in a Denny's parking lot. I have some shit to work out. When they've rolled threes every single time this has come up, and I tell them, now there's probably marshmallows behind there. Them as a player needs to go to the other players and go, I don't give a shit what my character says. It's not marshmallows back there. We're not going in there. And I need you guys to trust me on this. And then you guys have to fucking deal with that shit. You work it out. That's not my job. My job is to ask for roles to give you useful information. If you fuck those up, that's on you, and now you have to deal with those consequences. Should have built a character better at whatever I asked to roll, right? Like whatever it is. In those moments, I always ensure that no player goes in blind. Their characters might. Their characters might walk right into a hole that says, hey, if you enter this hole, you just die. If their character does so, that's one thing. But the player needs to know that that's what the sign says.
Right. Okay.
So, like for you specifically, I have repeatedly put you in positions where it's you can choose to do A and die and fuck off forever, or B and fight, and then maybe something else happens. You have no context or clue, but maybe it happens. And that maybe's a long shot. Right?
Right.
And when that happens, you now understand that you can either choose A, that you understand, or B, that you're risking things. There's no guarantee that you're going to survive this or that you're going to understand what happens. The only thing I can promise you honestly is that you as a player will have just enough information to be able to make an informed decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, that answers my question pretty well.
Okay. I'm just making sure, because the way that I do things is not the way that everybody needs to, should, or does. Everybody can do it however they want. I'm just giving you what I have and the way that I do things. All right. Nick, did you ask your question yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, it's your turn, and then we're going to move to engineer, and then we're going to move to Waldo, who is one of my favorites, but also one of the most frustrating of my players.
It's me. I'm the personality hunter, baby.
Bro, look. Okay, I want to agree with you, but if I agree with you, it kind of comes off negative. And I don't want it to come off negative because it isn't. All right?
I'm a good time, but it's rough.
I'm a good time. A short time, but a good time.
I'm a good time, but it's rough.
Fair. That is accurate. All right. Nikolai.
Cool. So as a DM, like, how do you feel when a campaign ends, like a day later, a month later, even like a year later?
I'm gonna get some water because this is actually emotionally upsetting.
I meant it to be.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Los.
Okay, guys, you're not ready for my question.
No.
No.
Yes, Jack.
You're not ready for my question.
While we're finishing this up, why don't you take a look at the marketplace and see if there's any mods that you are interested in throwing into our world.
I will get there at some point.
All right, Lord.
I'm interested to hear because even now, like my first real campaign with Joe and Olive and Waldo and Furf, there are days where I just like come with an idea and realization of, oh, I probably should have done it this way in the campaign, or blah 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 blah. Things of that nature.
Okay. Bro, same. Fully same, right? All right. So I will answer the question as directly and simply and honestly as I can.
Cool.
Having run a 4.5-year campaign, having run a 3-month campaign, I realize that it is the same emotional state. When the last roll is thrown, the only thing that I care about is that the people that were involved, the players that were involved, had moments of joy, moments of pain, moments of deep emotionality, and got to do what they wanted. Whether it panned out or not important. But they got to do what they wanted. When Riftwall ended, I had mixed feelings about things. Mostly because I second-guessed myself, and I, at the time, had severe imposter syndrome and couldn't allow myself to feel pride and joy in the deep and raw emotional ways that the players got to experience a world that I came up with. That is lying to myself. As a DM, when I have a player that will spend the money to pay for internet on an international flight to play D&D, when I have players that will get off work and be up for 26 hours to play D&D, when I have players that will get 3 hours of sleep in order to wake up in order to play D&D, and when I have players that will send me hate mail for 3 weeks because a fictional character died that nobody had ever seen before, then I'm doing my job. And I, as a DM, have to understand that. The bittersweet pain of the end of a campaign is there's a risk that this is the last time. There's a risk that it will never be this good. But in my experience, there is no fear, no internal flaw, no internal critique so powerful as to listen to people that I've known for a decade or more, or even a few months, weep into a microphone because of the fictional characters that I have made for them. And to hear the honest and real and true emotionality that they have. And there are times where I feel like I have failed. And there are times where I feel like I could have done better. And there are times where I sit here and mourn what could have been. But I don't get to feel those feelings. Because unless my players feel those feelings, then they're not real. Unless my players think that I failed them, I didn't. And I don't get to think that I did. Does that make sense? And no matter how much it hurt to end a campaign, no matter how much it hurt to retire these characters, the world that they warped and changed and made for my future campaigns is something that I promise, even in my most arrogant and narcissistic moments, could not have done by myself.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Tear to my eye just talking about it. Damn.
Right. Introspection time.
My question seems very small after that. Oh my goodness.
There is no question that it's small. That's the thing that you got to learn. There's no question or aside or thing you want to do that is small. It might not matter as much as the others. Oh yeah, it might feel small. But hey, just because it feels small doesn't mean that somebody isn't enjoying it.
It's not about the size, it's about the
Thanks,
way you use
Joe.
the question.
All right, engineer.
Okay, so I've said it before, I'll say it again. You guys are not ready for this question, and I'm not ready either because social anxiety. So I'm kind of shaking.
There, you're good.
No.
Agnes,
Yeah.
do you take late players, and what is the session schedule?
My session schedules are weekly. I design my campaigns to be run weekly, which is why I had a 4.5-year campaign that had 250 some odd sessions. I ensure that I have the time to run it, and if everybody else can make it, we do that. If they can't, we can't. When it comes to scheduling, if one person out of 4 or more cannot make it, we still play. If 2 can't make it, well, now we got to talk about some things. Okay? If you're late, you're late. If you tell me you're coming and you do show up, we're good. Hey, I'm running half an hour late or an hour late because of traffic or a plane or a series of baboons with cocaine addictions have taken over half the government. Whatever the situation is, when you get here, you get here. And you will be off to the side, just off screen until we get there. If you're willing to make... Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't hear you.
No, it's because my question is because like I honestly joined like just for the talk, but like you guys seem like really nice people, and my sessions are just bi-weekly. So as long as the session is not on Saturdays, I can play with you guys if you want, or you can just help with homebrew. I fucking love homebrew. I have a world Bible I never use. So I just like you guys. You guys are fun.
We can go into all of the insane out-of-pocket bullshit I've done over the years. When we're done with this, we together can get there. Okay? We will get to that after we finish this up, just because reasons, and we will get to them if we need to later. As I will tell you like this. You've been here for a while, we've been talking, and you have done something that a lot of players can't do and a lot of DMs won't do. Which is, this is how I play, this is what I like, and these are the flaws with it, and I will work with you around those things. Not everybody can do that. So when we're done with all of this, if you want to stay in the chat, if you want to stay in the Discord and we can talk, I have games that I have opening up. If you want help with homebrew, if you just want to run shit by me, not like I'm an authority figure, obviously, but just to bounce it off of somebody that has done some wild out of pocket shit because my players do nothing but emotionally abuse me at every opportunity. We can do that. That's fine. We're good. All right. Right, we're good. But you're more than welcome to stay in the Discord, and whenever, because I have openings for games, you're more than welcome. We can talk about it, and we can deal with it then. Is that okay?
Okay, that was my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, I know I come off as like know-it-all or like pretending to speak as an authority. I'm only trying to speak from my experience and to try to be as empathetic and understanding as possible. Because I'm bad at that, and so I have to try very hard to do it. Does that make sense?
I understand. I'm also on this spectrum, so I understand trying very hard to come off as something.
It sucks here. Would I change it? No. But it still sucks here.
I understand perfectly.
Right? I apologize. I got really derailed on that because I just wanted to assuage you. The core question was dealing with late players. Okay. Who here wants some brutal honesty?
Okay,
Me.
my question kind of.
Hell
I
yeah.
already got a cold case of it. I don't need more.
All right.
Need more.
I'll
Engineer?
take some. I'm the late player anyway, so it's okay.
Fair.
Take some brutal honesty. It's always humbling.
All right. Engineer, you were saying something?
It's not a humble pie.
Like I should clarify. The first clarification I should make is because I now just realized that my wording is bad. The first thing is
that this was going to be like a reference to me, like, hey, can I join you guys at some point? That was the first thing. The second, I don't mean late as in, oh, I arrived late to the session. I mean late as in, like, oh, we're like
Joining.
50 sessions in, and you guys
Okay.
are talking.
So one, that's not on you. Your words aren't bad. English is just shit at a lot of things.
It is 3 languages stacked in a trench coat.
Yeah, and just
Very difficult.
it's English is a shit language. It's very useful in the context of contracts, but outside of that, English is just kind of a shitty language. As someone who has studied multiple languages and has done his level best to understand them and to internalize them, English, the reason why English is one of the top 10 hardest languages is because English works on implication and a lack of actual definition and chronological or extemporaneous positioning. So, like Portuguese, I am not an expert in. But Latin language, Romantic languages like French and Spanish, there are more verb tenses in those languages than there are in English. We have approximations, but most of them we don't use because we're a bunch of dumb fucks. Because English is just kind of a hard language and it's kind of a really rough language to learn and to use. We don't even have a term for the proper ordination or the proper order of adjectives. Whereas every other language I know has a term for that in the study of grammar and linguistics. In French, for example, it's the Bagso adjectives, if that makes sense. So it's not a you thing. This isn't on you. It's literally on just the mechanics of English. And we can address that later. I do not like having players join long-term campaigns beyond a certain point. And that point is where it can be reasonably expected a character of that level could exist and not be part of the party. Does that make sense? In a campaign that's level 17, you're really not joining. There's no excuse for there to be more level 17 or above characters in the world where the level 17 characters are the heroes. At level 8 or level 3, yeah, you're good. It doesn't matter how far we're in. I got you. We're good. If you had done enough push-ups, you'd be level 5. We're fucking fine. And the reason I do that is because I err on the side of verisimilitude. The only reason I will ever say no is because there is a rule that we have cited that says no. When you are a character of a level of power that you should have been able to solve problems that the party has already solved, that breaks the canon, that breaks the verisimilitude of the world. Well, we went and stopped the high dragon Bartandalis with our magic spears of dragon slaying. Well, I'm level 24. I could have fucked him to death if I wanted to. Well, why didn't you do a goddamn thing, you piece of shit? I didn't want to. I didn't want to isn't a good fucking example. Is not a good response to that, right? So as long as it's a campaign, yes, 100%, 100%. All right, that is a good. Dragon Ball is a good fucking example. Well, why didn't you use your Kienzan? To be honest, Gohan, I forgot. That's a bad That's a bad answer, right? It's a bad explanation. Long story short, I have slots open, I have time frames open, and we can talk about that once we're done here. But the short answer to your question is, as long as it makes sense, I can make it work. If it doesn't make sense, then it won't work, and you're going to have to join something else. Of course. Yeah, but don't leave, because we can talk about some things. Who else has joined this goddamn party? Fuffles, you shitlord. All right, we're going to go to Waldo, and then we'll talk to Fuffles. Waldo, what is... Okay, one, how dare you?
Wait,
Two,
I'm
no
sorry.
notes.
What happened? I showed up just because I have a voyeurism kink and I like to watch.
Welcome to Twitch.
He just wants to watch.
Agno's streaming, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to
Got him
Twitch.
set up. Now he's talking to an audience who will never shut up. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, this is a terrible idea.
We know that. Just
Oh no.
bite down on a broom handle. Whoa,
He's been doing
those
really
are-
good, actually. I've been watching. It's been fantastic.
Right? All right, Waldo, what's your question?
So my question is a bit of an odd one because of where I'm coming from, like as
Mm-hmm.
a player. I've played in almost specifically just homebrew campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always gotten like a short list, like a docket of like what the nations are like in the areas that I'm playing in, the religions, and like just a short list of things that I can just read through. It's like 2 or 3 pages,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of get a grasp on the world when I'm creating a character. So how do you, if you're going to be playing in like a distinct Forgotten Realm setting, prepare a more casual player or an uneducated player to join your campaign with knowledge of the world and the goings on around them, like before a session 0? Like if they're coming in to build a character, like how do you organize information to give them so they can make a character that works into the world that you already have set up?
It's a good question. This piggybacks off of something I already said, which is very similar to it. If you tell me you want to be a human fighter who is the best spear fighter in his entire county, we can do that. If you want to be a half kitten, half dragon warforged, well, now we have to talk about some things. I don't address it until it actually conflicts with the lore and the verisimilitude of the world.
I guess my question is more pointed towards like pre-game session, like session 0 and like session 1. More so like how to get a grasp on like a normal person in this world would understand how the world works. Like, oh, this country's at war with this one. This one's at war with this one. These are major deities over here. This is what they are. Like, would you make a shorthand list for those things, especially for players that might be their first time going into D&D and they're not familiar with the deities and like the kingdoms and the warrings? I guess it's more so how would you present information to them to get them a general grasp on the world before they make their character, so they can actually be like inside of the world and get like a general grasp on what's going on as a normal person would. If you come to a campaign at level 3, you'd have a general idea of, you know, my country's at war with this country. We have these gods and goddesses here. How would that information be produced? Because I'm in mostly homebrew campaigns. Yeah. So all that is just sent to me beforehand, just to see if I'm interested, you know?
Okay.
But in the Forgotten Realms thing, if someone didn't read the books and didn't read the handbook front to back, how would that be presented?
It does not matter the setting. The only information I need to give you is information that is important for your character. If you are a fighter who grew up worshipping... if you were a fighter that grew up worshipping Cain and Caleb, you don't actually need to know anything about Desna or Visago or Asmodeus or Lux or Grost or Demogorgon or any other 300 different names that I can cite, right? You don't need to know that. You need to know what you need to know for your character. When you are building a character, my order of operations, and I tweak this for different people because they have different logic. What is it that you want to do? What is it your character wants to do? What is the moment you want to have in the game? Do you want to just take a bullet for the party and turn around and just ice a bad guy? I've got a build for that. Do you want to be able to call down the angels with just blackjacks and brass knuckles and brutalize somebody? We've got builds for that. Do you want to roll into a town that's under fire and protect the town with a shield? There's builds for that. That dictates what information your character would know. The information your character would know in the context of this question, I will reference and cite certain things so that the player has context for what their character does and what they understand. There is nothing worse than being asked to make a choice where you have no context. And for me, I want people to have context for their characters to have choice. So, for sake of argument, and I am going to apologize in advance if anything that is ever said, past, present, future, feels like an indictment of you. But we're going to use you as an example.
You have full permission. It's fine. Like I said, personality higher, buddy. We're good.
You're good. Look, I wish I could say that's not true, but it is, and goddamn it, I want him on the payroll.
Wait, if you're the personality hire, then what did I get hired for? My fat, juicy dump truck?
Yes.
Oh, I'm the office candy.
I thought that was me.
You know what? You know what? I'm okay with it. No, you're here for different reasons, bud, and we both know that.
Well,
Anyway.
You know that.
We'll get to that later.
Ask that question.
That's also accurate, but we'll get to that later. So, we're going to use you as a player and your characters as an example.
Outstanding.
Toast. Did Toast need to know how Riftwall worked when he was brought in as a character?
No.
Did he need to know about New Eden, Orin, Patras, Junia, Salandra?
No, none of that was important.
You as a player, when you started, did you need to know about Elazak?
Absolutely not, no.
Now, when we got to that part where you were the authority on Elazak, what did I do? I explained through you and to you how everything worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I treat any world, any lore, any situation, any pantheon, any information. If you should know something, and so for all the DMs out there who are like, roll me a d20 to see if you can tie your shoes and remember to bring your sword into battle, you're a bad DM, and I hope that your dad hit you harder. I don't. That's
fair.
I don't. That's not. I don't hope that.
For legal reasons.
But part of me, no. If you are asking for rolls, and this is a me thing, I believe on rolling for things that have a chance to pass and fail. If your wizard knows their name and hasn't had head trauma or amnesia or anything else, don't ask them to roll to remember the name. Same thing with anything else. If you have somebody who has a 26 strength and the DC to open a door is 11, don't ask for a roll. They rip the door off the hinges and neatly fold it and put it on a table, and you guys move forward. We're done here. There's no need to roll.
Oh my god, okay, so that's a little thing. My strength, my character is 17. I tripped over a cane. A little gnome put a cane to trip me, and I tripped with 17 strength.
Was it athletics or was it dexterity?
That's a dex thing.
I don't know, but it was like a little gnome that put a cane on me, and I was like aggressively walking, and I have 17 strength. My 17 strength never comes into use.
Every
skill.
Every skill has
sake of argument, devil's advocate this.
Okay, all right.
It's a cane and it wasn't an immovable rod. Because if it's an immovable rod, okay, that's a different situation entirely, and that's a separate conversation.
An unexpected cane and an aggressive walk would trip me, though. So I'm not a dexterous man. I'm a strong man.
No, it was a regular cane. She's a non-magic user. She cannot even touch magic because of her backstory.
You have a 17 strength. That should have snapped in half, and you should have looked over her and went, "Are you okay?" And that should have been the conversation. Passive scores. This is a 5e thing. Passive scores all matter. If you have a passive strength of 20, anything that requires a 19 or less, a 20 or less, but I'll err on the side of being nice to you. A 19 or less isn't a roll. You just do it. oh, opening this pickle jar is a DC 13 athletics check. Well, my athletics score is a plus 10. So you can just tear the glass off if you want. It's fine. We're good here.
Open the pickle jar.
Or you can just open the pickle jar like a normal person, you psychopath. Those are fine. All of this is good.
Yes, but for RP reasons, I would like to chew my way through the glass.
And because you are an insane person. but
this actually
for the glass. Just eat the entire pickle jar. Pop it in.
Just eat all of it. Just swallow the pickle jar. Fuck it. Swallow the pickle jar.
You want to talk about some every flavor beans? This is a pickle jar flavored bean.
There it is. 100%.
The answer to this question actually opened up a lot of what I was going to ask about, just for stream purposes, about the type of DM you are and how you handle things. So I really appreciate that, Joe. It really clarified a lot.
I am a white hot nerd that is trained to be good with people, naturally bad at people, and desperately just wants everybody to have a better life than they have.
Yeah. I'm happy that you took my question and expanded it.
Well, you have a good question.
Completely different realm.
No, well, you had a good question, and I don't expand questions to ignore the core of it. I expand questions because I think they touch on something deeper. Right?
You answered the next 6 questions I was going to ask if I had 6 more turns. So.
Yep. Also, that reminds me, we're going to go back to the my problem player gives me trauma and heartburn, which is a gross over-exaggeration. It's absolutely not true, but it's in the line of what's true. It's just very, 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 very far away.
We're going to bring up Toast again? Oh, crap.
Well, no, we're not going to bring up Toast. We're going to bring up Waldo.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I know. Hey guys, nobody's perfect. The only thing that a DM can ever ask from a player is that they care and that they try. If you show up on time and you care about what's going on, everything else can be worked through. And it doesn't matter how much it upsets the other players or the DM. If you are doing your level best, it is you and the DM's responsibility to meet in the middle and understand where each other are and to make that function. I have players that I adore as players. I have players that I adore as people. And never the twain shall meet. Okay? I'm going to be real with you.
Yeah.
That being said, it is very important as a DM and a player to do your best to understand where everyone else is and try to move there. As long as you're trying and you are legitimately and honestly making a good faith attempt, anybody that throws that away or punishes you or doesn't want to play with you because of it is the asshole in this situation. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has flaws. And sometimes your flaws line up in a way where the thing you want to do is one of the most difficult things. But as long as you are honestly communicating and doing your best and trying your best to listen and grow and improve, it is unfair to dismiss that and pretend that it isn't happening.
To put this into perspective for everybody, I played a character way smarter than me for about 2.5 years, and it took me a year and 8 months to finally break down and message Agnostros here and be like, "Hey, buddy, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm trying my best." And then it completely flipped the character up on his head and actually did what I was supposed to do with him, which I wanted to do with him. It took a long time. Playing a... Not gonna lie, it was a 16 int character. That's way above my intelligence rate. Respectfully, I'm an 11 at best.
I feel bad because I was gonna say 10, maybe 11 at best, and I felt really bad about that. I felt really bad about that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
My charisma's like an 18, but my wisdom's like a 9, and my intelligence like an 11 at best. I get it.
I'm dumb, but I'm lovable. Hi guys.
I know where I'm at. But that turning point with the character was also a turning point for the entire campaign, because then the entire party was more cohesive. Mm-hmm. Because I finally filled in my role that I wanted to be at. And it took a long time. hi, I'm the problem, it's me. Still am. Still kind of difficult to wrap my head around D&D sometimes. I'm not very good at it, but it's something I like to do. But it's a collaborative effort, like you were saying. It's a distinct effort between the player and the DM to make sure goals are realized. And make sure the character is playing properly. Actualized, all that stuff.
And you're right. And that's something important for DMs, new or experienced, been playing since Chainmail, or you just started 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a player that the person genuinely is doing their best and wants everything to be good and wants everything to be fun, and the character they're playing is fucking everything up, you are not helping anybody by ignoring it. Address it. Talk to them. Because I promise you, you can meet in the middle a lot easier than you think you can. And you can be in a position where, and I'm going to be honest, and this is going to be very blunt and very, very, this is going to be a very hard honesty. I know who the weakest player in my campaign is. And I'm never going to skip a session just because they can't be there. But if you think for a moment, I don't want them at every single session I play, you're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
Just because somebody is bad at what they're trying to do, and they're bad at the thing you guys are doing together, doesn't mean you need to say, I don't want you here. D&D is not competitive. If it was, I'd be a much bigger problem than I am. I would be an absolute nightmare for people. Because I am a competitive person and I want to win. D&D is not competitive. I do not compete with my party. If I want to kill my party, 77 Asmodeus show up and 200 Tiamats and Power Armor show up. I don't care what level you are and what class you are. I win. And that's toxic and bad.
I mean, unless you have Nick at the table and he uses Wish to make them all just disappear.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna be real honest with you. A deity with Wish as an action, which all the Draconic Pantheon has if they're a spellcaster, they can just legendary resistance anything and then just counter Wish. Because they can, as a reaction, use a spell. It's only 4 times a day, but you don't have 4 spell slots.
The gods are dead. Boom. How?
Not to toot my own horn.
There's a lot of repercussions with that.
Yep.
I wish to restart the whole campaign from session 1.
Bro, how dare you? How dare you at me?
Oof.
Jarvis,
yes.
Put them in a time loop.
Oof.
Over the 2 characters in the last campaign we played, I'm not gonna lie, being the problem character, I also had some of the most story development just off of a whim. That's why I love playing D&D, because I might be bad at it. I might try my best. I still might not be very good at it.
But it's collaborative. We can be good at it.
Sometimes, and they're very good, and everybody loves them. And I'm still over here in the background, if I'm not doing anything, crying my eyes out when 2 kids are born. Right?
Let me put it like this.
I'm still here.
Yeah, you are. So some of you are DMs. Some of you are experienced players. Let me put it like this. At the end of a 4.5-year campaign, I asked if a particular player wanted to do something that he never got to do. And he had the gall to be like, no, I think I want to save it for later. And I was absolutely livid. That being said, I still don't want to run a session without him.
Yeah.
You can reconcile the love and care and faith in your players with their actual skill set and yours. If I was a roller coaster DM, wouldn't have these problems. But I'm not. It's not good or bad. I'm just not a roller coaster DM. I'm not a DM that does cool, big, epic moments that have no backing or impact. And because of that, when I have players who can't do those things, it doesn't matter. As long as they're trying, as long as they're doing their level best, as long as they are making an honest attempt to be a good player, that's the only thing I care about, because I can do 90% of the group project. As long as the 10% that you give me is the best you can do, we're fine. But when you can do 20 and you give me 10, your character dies by being eaten by fucking badger weasels, and we're not friends anymore.
Yeah. I do have to say, I've never been more invested in a campaign in my life, other than when Agno here has run one. I've played.
That's only because you've had bad. That's only because you've had DMs that are either bad DMs or a bad fit for you.
Mm-hmm. But I've also had another like mirror DM that you played with that I've had a very good time with. But I enjoy your campaigns more. I'm invested in them more. Just because you're writing.
I think that's character choice. It's not my writing. I think it's the character choice.
I think it's. I don't think it's character choice because I like my other characters a little bit better, but I like the campaign better over here. If that makes sense.
I understand and I accept it and I will appreciate it, even if I believe deep down that there is a fundamental disconnect.
My writing of characters is bad across the board. Everybody knows that. I don't write them good. I don't roll them up good. They just happen, and I'm with them, and then we're rolling with them after they're done.
Stairs Mel Blanc.
That's a problem. That's a problem for me. Making a character is horrible, but I play him kind of okay.
Yeah.
But the campaigns that I've played with you are more enjoyable, and they're more. I'm invested in them more than I am the other campaigns.
And that's why me, as a person, I have a really guilty conscience about this. I just want to tell you to stop playing bad D&D with people that can't run D&D for you very well.
Well, they run D&D good for me, but maybe I just
no, they don't.
A little bit better. I don't know.
When you come to my game, as a bag of dicks and a series of assholes in a hall of mirrors of bullshit, all I can say is that's clearly not good
Huddled
D&D.
Together in a cheesecloth sack.
Correct. Yes, in a cheesecloth sack of guilt. But we're going to hit one more person about some things, and then we are going to wrap it up. Also, engineer, please feel free to stay and join in the Discord at any point in time. You strike me as somebody who is not an absolute problem. And that's honestly the bare minimum. Just don't be a problem and we can be cool. And that's me speaking. This is a very narcissistic perspective. But that's me speaking is where I'm at. It's just don't suck and we can be cool. And I think that you can be cool. But we're going to go to my other problem player, the one that gave me, in all honesty, the most stress. Not even kidding, not even by a little bit. The most stress and most anger and like emotional upset as a DM. We're going to go to Fuffles. Nah, it's you, motherfucker.
What's my question? Wait, I gotta sum it up.
You know what? I just realized I've got a dentist appointment. I gotta get some.
Oh, you got a dentist appointment with a tire iron? Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. Shut up. Answer the question.
All right.
What's your question? You've done this long enough. What's your question?
To put it in perspective, you get to ask the DM a question about how he DMs, why he DMs, or the way he DMs. That's what we're doing today. There you go.
Okay. I'm trying to find the best way to phrase a question.
Muddle through. Just muddle through until we understand what you're asking.
Essentially, what I want to get to is it's something that.
Hey, bud. Welcome home.
where do you draw lines in like allowing players to have control on how they do a thing?
As long as it doesn't break a rule, do whatever. As long as it doesn't violate a rule or violate verisimilitude of the game and the world, I don't give a shit. I can adapt. I'm going to say something that sounds very narcissistic and very arrogant, and I apologize in advance. I cannot imagine a world where you come to me with something so esoteric that I don't understand it and cannot react to it. So when you want to work around a problem in a way that does not break the world, but is unique and does work, I can lock into that very quickly.
So, piggybacking off of that bit, how would you go about getting a player to start taking more agency in like describing their character actions? Example, and what made me think of this was there was a game that you were running for a couple of people, that there was one night that you couldn't run a combat encounter, and you had me run it.
Yes,
in
I
your
remember
stead.
that. I remember that, yeah.
And one of the bits of feedback that I got was that the players had enjoyed. I'm one of those people that when I'm DMing, when I'm running a game, I like to add bits of detail, especially in combat, to really like make characters, especially when they're low level and they may not have the flashiest moves yet, to still make them feel like badasses. So, you know, in this particular instance, one of your characters, one of your players, his character got knocked prone. He had a friend like in between him and this last guy that was trying to cast a spell. He fires off this. He rolled an attack and got a nat 20 off on it and killed this last spellcaster. And so the way that I sat there, I was like, everything's coming down to this. The adrenaline's going. You guys have been getting ambushed, waves and waves and waves and waves.
Yeah.
You pull this arrow back and you just focus on the breath. And as you release it, this arrow, you see the wobble in the shaft. It goes through your buddy's legs. And as this guy is uttering the last syllable of his spell, you find his throat. And but how do you get players to buy in and start describing that kind of stuff themselves? Because while it's cool if I tell them that's how they do it, to me, I think it's a lot cooler when the player wants to know if they can do something cinematic.
So, the short answer is show them how it's done. The long answer is this. If I can identify what your genre trope, style trope, the overall flavor of your character is, I can, for lack of a better word, fully and utterly describe for you the thing you did in the context of what you normally do and what you like, right? Sorry, I gotta swap back to this. My apologies. What I do is I try to internalize my players' goals and the language that their character is built in. If you are a character who is a hyper-competent assassin, then when you fire your round, it bends around obstacles and seeks home. If you are a incredibly powerful brawler, you cock back a fist and shatter a collarbone before you even start your attack. If they are a caster, you bend the threads of the weave in front of you, creating a knot of potential violence. And due to the reaction of your enemy, you are forced to let that go. And that violence blossoms like a chrysanthemum into 1,000 petals of cruelty and pain. And these are things that come from understanding and having a relationship with the different player characters. The easiest way is to give examples and then to repeatedly ask them, hey, how do you kill the hippopotamus with a sawed-off shotgun and a cocaine problem? And if they say something very simple, you build on that and make it cool. If they say something very specific and ornate, you just support it. You can play on either side of the barrier. You can either be in front and pull the barrier forward or be behind and push it forward. But either way, you can do these things and you can make it work. And all it takes is understanding the language of cool that the player has and the language of cool that the character has. Because oftentimes they are not the same thing and the overlap is very minor. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where it's like I know how I try and do it as a DM, but it's one of those. I just wanted to hear like what your take is on getting that buy-in, because I feel like as somebody that's run games and now I'm getting a lot more experience as a player. I feel like that's where a lot of the success and failure in a campaign lies, is getting people to buy in.
Okay. We're going to wrap up here shortly. I have to hit the head. Josh, are you speaking? Because your Discord is all wobbly. Well, that's what happens. That's what you get. So, I have to run and do a couple of things over the next 3-4 minutes, but what I can do is I can end it here. So,
as you should.
Everybody here, Jack, Furf, Los, Josh, Nikolai, Engineer, Waldo. Does anybody have a specific question, preferably a direct and easily answered or shortly answered question? Does anybody have anything for me before we end the stream?
I got one.
When
Why
will
are
you be
you
back?
so hot?
Because you have bad taste in men. Next question.
My next question is, when you're back from your dentist appointment so we can discuss stuff loosely?
I'll be back in just a few minutes. Once we're closed.
Okay.
I don't want to leave at the end of a stream. I want to close it in the stream, and then we'll just be in Discord and moving forward, and we can see what happens next, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I have a mechanical question.
Yeah, what's up?
So, how do you? Because I've encountered this a lot my last session. How do you balance someone's passive to an active? Because a lot of the things that I had to deal with last session was, my passive work is 18. Can I just suss the information out? And normally, yes, but I don't want it to just. I guess I just don't want it to be like, oh, I'm gonna make you roll, and they're like, well, my 18's not good enough. Like, no, it's
Okay.
not roll.
Is everybody good for about 10 more minutes of stream time?
I'm
Sure.
gonna get off.
If you have to
I
go,
just got
go.
here, so I'm good.
Okay. If you need to leave, go.
All right,
It-
deuces.
I just want you to know it's not. I'm not saying leave. I'm saying if you gotta go, you go.
You know, I got some stuff to do. It was a pleasure, though. It was a great
Yeah.
stream.
Same here. I appreciate all your help.
Of course, got you, man.
All right. Give me about 90, maybe 240 seconds. Because that's a good question, and I want to answer it, and I will be right back to answer the question.
Okay.
I just have had
Take
a
your time.
lot of fluids, and I need to go over there.
Take your
Okay,
time.
yeah, same.
I'll be
Go
right
piss,
back.
girl.
I'm gonna try and be back soon.
You go piss, King.
Los, did you crash or did you just leave?
Pinky, nyoi, hoiny, mioiny, mioid.
I was messing with settings.
Why is everyone so loud?
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, I have to turn down my doop. Also, it's hard keeping track of everyone's fucking passive stuff.
That's what it was looking for.
A little hard.
Full screen.
I mean, so Joe's not here, but I can give my 2 cents.
Let me get that invitation again, Jack.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the way I would rule on stuff like that would be passive is good enough unless whatever it is something that specifically has to be like looked for.
Like traps and such.
Yeah, basically. Like if it's something that it's like, oh no, like this is unless you as the DM know that the player is looking for a thing, then like if they walk into a room and the player says, hey, so I'm just gonna keep my head on a swivel looking for like traps and stuff. Okay, at that point, passive is good enough. You know, on certain things. Like if there are things in the room where their passive would catch it, you can tell them that.
Yeah.
Still make them roll, but
So for me, it's passive meets passive. Passive meets active in like stealth for like ambushes and things. But I use passives for everything for things that have a DC that are passive DCs. So if lifting the rock is a DC 15 and you have a +6 to strength, you just do it. Does that make sense? That's generally how I treat it.
Sure.
Because I think passives are not treated as important as they are in 5th edition, as they should be. But long story short, I look at the way that people build characters. When you are putting your points into something, into a skill, that needs to be reflected in what your character knows and can do. And when there are active things that you need to address or deal with, that's different. But for anything that's passive, we run passives, and I like to leverage those. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and then we can continue discussing after this.
Sure.
So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back and looking at the stream for whatever reason.
Back just in time to say goodbye.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna wrap this up.
For hosting.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm really trying to get out there to do the pay DM thing, but more importantly, I want people to be able to have a good time and to have fun and enjoy D&D and TTRPGs in general. And because of that, I'm going to wrap this up now, and then we can talk about whatever's left off stream. And that's where we're gonna go. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thanks for joining, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys later.